Hey everyone, how you doing tonight? This is I would say a lovely Friday, but it was hot as the surface of the sun over here, so I don't know how lovely that is to walk outside in my I've changed clothes twice.
Oh, it's an oven out there.
Yeah, and the reason I changed shirts earlier was not because I sweated, but because my shirt caught on fire. I was outside and I literally caught on fire. My neighbors were like, "He's a vampire. We knew it.
I
He
was
only comes out at
immediately.
night. Now he's outside during the day, and he's."
I saw all the haters. Like I knew he was a liar.
Yeah, they're definitely there. It's crazy because like earlier today, our books came in. My books came in for the conference. Thank God. I didn't even get a chance to count and make sure that they were all there, but that'll be the next step. And so we'll have books for the conference. If you're planning on going to the conference, folks, if you're going to the conference, I'm going to reiterate this later on. Don't buy the book from Amazon. Okay, buy it from me because you can get it autographed and we get the full amount for whatever, other than, Amazon,
Takes a cut.
yeah, they take a huge cut. And that's anybody who sells a book on Amazon, but that doesn't mean I don't appreciate those that have bought it who can't get it any other way. So if you want to read it, Now, I had somebody tell me the other day, and before I go any further, let me just say, Josh Turner at PRTpodcast.com, Josh Turner at PRTpodcast.com. And then right here's the coordinates, patreon.com/PRT podcast. So you can contribute if you want to help out the show, or you can do a super chat. Patreon gives you some benefits. If you do it every month, if you do $10 tier after 3 months, you will get a swag bag. If you do a $20 tier, it's instantaneous. Now, what we're going to do, because we're making different tiers, some people in the $10 tier were kind of complaining. They're like, well, it's not fair that we have to wait 3 months, and I kind of agree. Okay, so what we're going to do about the $10 tier, okay, is if you do $10, then we're going to just wait. You only got to wait 2 months. After 60 days, you can go ahead and get a swag bag. Oh, pain in my back. And if you're on the $20 tier, we are going to ask that you wait a month. Like, be patient, and it's only because we're having a hard time getting everything out. We did ship out 11 different Patreon members.
Yep.
Right? The other Patreon members have not given us their email address. I mean, their email.
The address and also
Can't mail it to their email address.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Sorry. They're like, you mail to the email
Why don't
address.
you
We're
down-
interested in pictures of it.
Yeah. You can download our shirts and hats.
So you
and
can look
books
at
and
them.
stuff.
I thought that was the stupidest thing ever. When I was collecting cards, and I wish I still could because I don't have time or the money for it. But when I did, they had this thing called digital cards that came out. You remember those?
Yeah, that was the biggest racket.
And I was like, and they wanted you to pay like $3 or $4 a card.
Mm-hmm.
Because I remember, like, they sent me like a card for free, like a promo. It was like Jason Witten or something. And I'm like, I'm not paying for this. Okay, you can give it to me for free. It'll be on my phone, but and I'm not keeping pictures of ball players. It's because that's all it is. I mean, it's not a card. Like, it's not something you can collect. To me, it's not. You can't. How do you collect on your phone?
Yeah, I
there's
mean,
nothing to it.
someone takes your phone and you got your whole collection gone.
Yeah. So
I mean,
it's just dumb. I'm glad that I haven't seen much of. I haven't been collecting for a few years now. So I don't know if that's still a thing. Even if somebody knows, tell me, because I have no idea. But what's crazy though is the bigger the tier, the bigger the swag bag. That's a crazy deal. $30 tier gets you, what is it, 2 books and a shirt or a hat, I think, and then $40 tier gets you a shirt, a hat, 2 books. 40 and all the way up to 50. We have a $50 tier too. And the 40 and the $50 tier, you get like 2 books, and one of my books. If you do the $50 tier, you get 2 books, 2 of my books. Then you get like a shirt and a hat or hoodie, whichever, and possibly
on top
tumbler or mug. Yeah,
on top of everything else.
Now, there is a little bit of confusion. Some people had said, well, I leveled up to the next level. So what people could easily do, and we talked about this as a team, is someone could just be a $30 tier or $20 tier, then upgrade, then they could get a full another set of stuff. And I'm not saying that you guys are that way, but somebody says, Josh, your mic, what's going on?
Yeah, I fixed it.
Okay. Your volume dropped. Yeah, we had some issues with the mic sound on a couple of these last episodes, which is a dang shame.
Yeah, we just
because-
came in and used all the same settings, and we didn't change anything. So we're in the process of figuring out why that is. I hope that static is gone. If you can hear that static while we're speaking, just please let us know in the comments.
Yeah, okay. So I don't know why it was low. It didn't sound low because I could hear it right here, and it didn't sound low, but maybe it was. But take your word for it, guys. So the $40 and $50 tier, just to explain, if you go from 30 to 40, you will get, like, say you already got everything from the $30 tier, right? If you've already gotten a swag bag, then we'll give you the extra stuff to the $40 tier that you don't have. Like, say you had 2 books, a shirt, whatever. On the $40 tier, we'll give you not only 2 books, we'll give you the shirt and the hat. And then if you go up to the $50 tier, 2 books, one of my books is on the $40 tier, right? And then on $50 tier, you get both of my books. So I think we said last time it was on the $50 tiers, each one of my books autographed.
Yep.
Plus you get a 3rd book from one of many authors. So that's the deal. On the $50, I believe that's what it was, right?
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, and then the $40 tier, you get one of my books and one of the, and it's just dealer's choice, whatever we have on hand. Thank you for that donation. We appreciate that, Justin Newhart. And it says, celebrate the first super chat from Justin Newhart. Yay! We celebrate. I don't know why it has to tell you that. Like, well, this guy's done it, but this is the first time, so let's make sure he knows. Justin, we appreciate it, man.
Never mind the people who've done it 15 times. They don't deserve any kind of.
They don't deserve any credit, but Justin, we do appreciate that, and thank you for listening. And hopefully you can make it to the conference. That would be awesome to see you there. Anybody and everybody who wants to go to the conference, put the link up to the tickets to Eventbrite. We have a lot of tickets left, although we have actually surpassed what we sold by about 10 from last year on Eventbrite. And then, a good 100 people showed up at the door to buy. A lot of people just like to show up at the door. They're old-fashioned, whatever. But Eventbrite, we have sold 10 more than we did last year. Now we've surpassed that. We still got a couple weeks left. Usually the last month of this is when you get more people. We don't have to put a bunch of extra chairs and a bunch of stuff because we're not going to have as big of a crowd as we could have. But that could be a good thing, actually, because we were like, oh, are we going to have enough chairs? And then they wanted us to rent a bunch of chairs. And after you're paying already like $6,000 just to rent out a facility, it gets rather pricey. So, it is what it is. And we're happy with the crowd that's going to be there. There's going to be a good turnout. But if you want to be VIP, we still have. Now, we don't have a whole lot of VIP left, do we?
No, most of the tickets I think we sold actually are VIP tickets.
Yeah. But because I know that I looked on there and like 20% of the tickets we sold were regular tickets.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, I'll see you on Friday, September 1st for the dinner. So we do have a show. I'm waiting for some people to get into the chat so we can start talking and give you some stories here. Once that chat hits about 300, we'll start spitting them. We have a lot of stuff to talk about. I don't even know how. It's crazy. We recorded for Tuesday's show, and I think you guys are going to like it. And it was a continuation of what we talked about on Saturday. I don't remember if it was from what we talked about on Sunday. What did we talk about on Sunday? I can't remember exactly.
Sunday's live stream, was that the no, that wasn't the Nature of Reality one, was it?
No, that was
Saturday's.
Yeah.
It was like an impromptu show, and Tony wasn't here.
And Sundays was just a bunch of stories, I think, a little bit of continuation left off
Yeah.
of Friday.
Is there champagne up in that VIP? No, there's just really good barbecue, and you get to have first crack at autographs from the speakers. And last year, we had I think one speaker sold out on VIP day.
Yeah.
So we were like, wow. He was like, well, I'm done. I sold out everything. And so, he didn't expect the turnout that there was. And but he still had some other stuff to say, but his books were his book was gone. Here's the thing. If you come to the conference, you're going to have a good time. I'm telling you right now. I mean, it's going to be awesome. And you know, we're as it gets closer, it gets more exciting. I'm more excited for it, and I'm just really ready to do it. I had a talk with several people today: Dave Weatherly, Ron Moorhead, Doug
you were on the
Hychek.
phone, like all day.
Yeah, I was on the phone all day. Doug Hychek's going to be there. Says, Wolf, let's hear another short New Mexico story. Sure. You know, I got some. After we talked about that last time, Matt, I went and I looked and I found a chupacabra story. Very interesting story. Here's the thing. If you do the Patreon and we can't get to you right now over this 2 weeks period because we're getting our merchandise, we have to go through it and inventory it. We have gotten shipments in today. We're supposed to get one more shipment in, right?
Yep.
Okay, and then we have shipments coming in that we just got, and then we have one more like set of things to get, and we hope that it makes it in time. I think it will. So we have to inventory all this and catalog it, mark it down, and what's going to the conference. And what's going to the conference, there's quite a bit that's going to the conference. So when we get back from the conference, we will get back on board on getting your stuff. But if you are a Patreon member and you don't, you haven't given me your address and your information, then please do that. Please get on that so I can take care of you. Also, I'll do this too. You know, like if people don't want to do 10 or 20, if you want to do like 15 or 25 or whatever, I will count that. You know, I'll take into consideration. You know, like if you can't do 30 but you do 25, I can understand. You can't afford it, whatever. I'll do what I can. Okay. Depending upon what we have in stock, because I don't want people to feel left out or whatever. But you have to understand though that some people are paying more, so they're expecting more, you know, and that's just how we have to do it. And I would love to just be able to, every time you tier up, just give you a whole nother swag bag. But then if we did that, people would just do that.
Yeah.
And they'd get a whole new swag bag for going up $10. And we do need the money to support the show. We actually need a new camera setup in here. And when we get back from the conference, that's the next goal. And it's something that Christopher Jordan, who is a AV genius, I guess we should say.
It's a professional.
He's a professional. He's going to be doing the sound and everything at the conference this year. And he's going to help us with the new setup. And so that's going to cost some money. But in order to make a quality product and then figure out what's going on with the sound, you know, we may have to scrap all of our wires and start over with that. It costs money. This isn't cheap venture, you know. It's just, it is what it is. If I was independently wealthy, I'd be here doing this for free because I enjoy doing it. I like doing this. It's fun for me. There are days when people test my patience and I'm not real happy, but those are few and far between. I'm usually, I come in a pretty cheery mood. Just, you know. Been rough day today trying to get things covered with the job. Everybody decided that this weekend they wanted security. Every other weekend, you know what? Break in and steal everything. They don't care. But this weekend, we want security. Probably because they broke in and stole everything last week.
Collectively decided to stop being cheap this weekend.
It was amazing. It was just like phone ringing off the hook. We need security.
Oh,
we need
now
security.
you want to keep what you have.
Mm-hmm.
Now that we're doing stuff, huh?
Say, somebody broke into my stuff, say, and now I need somebody to protect it, say. Well, what happened to last week? I didn't care about last week. Last week is gone. It's over with. They stole everything. Everything. All my chairs, my furniture, my house, my wife. It's gone. So I'm going to start over, say. So I need some security.
Yeah, Shay.
They talk just like that. Yeah. Every client that called was just like,
and you better do the job or we'll put the squeeze on you, Shay. Yeah.
I was like, wow. Guys talk like lips manless. So we have a show tonight, like I said, and we're getting close to that 300 number where we're going to get started. Do you have it set up to where people can't rewind?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead and explain that again real quick because people were really complaining about that. Please explain that. And
okay, so is the camera on? All right. Mm-hmm. So I know that it might be kind of confusing, but there is a reason why I set it up to where you can't rewind it anymore. Is because that in the live chat, like more than a few times, there's been people who have like commented or responded to things that we've said like 10, 15, 20 minutes ago. And it's caused like some confusion for the people who are watching what we're saying and talking about currently. and then it'll throw us off too, because then like all the messages are now suddenly about what we've already covered, and we have to clarify that. So it's I mean, like, it's just I made that decision because I figured it's in y'all's best interest, it's in our best interest that we're all on the same page at the same time, we're watching the same thing. And you can always go back and rewind and fast forward after we're done with the live stream, and after YouTube processes it, you can watch it just like any other video.
Yeah. So the comments were not keeping up with, how people don't remember. I was thinking that the other day, but then I found myself doing it on, I was watching some channel. I was either watching Hellbent Holler or I think North Carolina Crypto, Tom Cardo's channel, one of those. Or it might have been Jason McLean. I don't know. I think him and Dr. Bertram were on or something. But I was sitting there watching one of those because I've been trying to get in the habit of watching the other shows on my TV while I'm doing my work and my study. Mm-hmm. And I had it on, and I had just did the same thing. I was like, oh, I'm going to comment on that. So I get my phone out, and I'm like, oh, wait, I'm like 30 minutes behind. These people will be like, what the heck's wrong with this guy?
Plus we want to be able to interact with y'all, and we can't really do that if we got 30 people 10, 20, 30 minutes behind. We want to be able to gauge y'all's opinion on things live, and y'all can react to us live. So I don't know. It just makes more sense.
And I get what people are saying, because we don't always start on time. Like, we try to make it at 9 o'clock and then 7:30 for Sunday. And you can't just sit around waiting all day, or can you? But anyway, I don't want you to be like, oh, I missed this. That's why people always say, well, the first part of the show, he just talks and he doesn't start doing it. Well, that's because we're waiting for people to get in, and I don't want people to not be able to know what's going on. Okay. But like Anthony said, after it's done rendering and all that, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Then we can, you can go back and watch the show in its entirety, and you can fully rewind this. Okay. And that will take care of you. And Magua will show you the way. If you don't know what movie that's from, you should really find out. That's a great movie. The soundtrack.
Yeah, I was going to say, and once you find out the movie, then go listen to the soundtrack to it.
Yeah. Somebody tell me what movie that is. Let me see. See if you know. Don't, do you? You don't. You don't even know who Magua is.
The first person who gets it wins the satisfaction of knowing that you got it.
Well, if you give us your address and you're patient after the conference, we'll send you something. How about a hat?
I'll give you a
Gremlins.
high-five.
Come on now. Gremlins. No.
Nope.
Not a
Keep saying
Magua.
A silver bullet.
No. Magua. He was a dude. Blood out.
No.
Hey, Devin, me and your dad and your uncle probably watched that about 15 times when we were young.
There we go. Ross Cleveland got it.
Who did?
That's
Ross
what
Cleveland.
I thought too.
Last of the Mohicans. There you go, Roz. See? It's not that hard. See? So now we got 323 people in there. Let's get started. I want to tell you guys, we had a conversation about somebody back on Sunday, right? And or Saturday. It was called The Nature of Reality. If you haven't checked out that particular episode, go check it out. It's called Nature of Reality, and I talk about a guy who lived in a house, and it was beyond haunted. I would say they were moving in and out of alternate realities. That's how I would say it. Now, we just did a show, and me, Anthony, and Tony, we went back in the archives, and we said, let's get together all of our all of our different glitches, time slips, blah, 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 and let's put together one about the nature of reality. So we did Tuesday. We could have kept going. Mm-hmm. Like, we had so many, and we didn't even get to them all. And so I thought, this is a really good topic, because so many people have had weird stuff like that happen to them. And you start thinking about it, and you're like, how many times has something really weird and happened to you? And I'm getting creeped out, just creepy out, thinking about some of this stuff. Okay? My hair is literally, I don't even know what's going on. And I'm not joking, folks, okay? Y'all know. Y'all have heard me talking to some of these people. A lot of times we're on speaker, when I'm talking, because I don't like the radiation. So I'll sit there in my office or my study, and these guys will be walking around, and you've heard some of the stuff that I've talked about it. I usually have to talk it on speaker, but if you talk to me, I'll tell you, hey, you're on speaker, not being recorded unless I'm recording you. And we have some weird stuff. And I know the other day Tony came in there and he was listening to somebody talk, and it was
Creepy,
creepy.
to say the least.
It was creepy, yeah. And I said, this is what I do. I mean, a few hours a day of talking about creepy stuff. And my wife, she's so sweet. She's always like, you can stay in here and talk about it, honey. And then in an hour, she's like pointing to the office, like, take it in there because this is creeping me out. Okay. Here's one I'll start with. Now our local grocery store, all right, is called HEB. Right? We have other grocery stores.
Yeah, but it's definitely Texas's main.
Yeah.
It's the best one.
Yeah. So here's one I got from a local person who she works at the HEB, and she said, and this happened on her day off. She said there was a woman that used to come in there all the time, and she said, it was very weird. There was somebody I gave a business card to, one of the HEBs we shop at, and one of her coworkers messaged me and says, "Hey, my name is Monica, and I like your show, and can I tell you a story?" And I said, "Sure." And so she's like, and so she actually didn't end up telling me that day. It was like she said, "Can I tell you a story?" And then several days go by, and I thought, and I don't. It's whatever. I don't really pursue it. If you want to tell me, tell me. So I figured maybe she got creeped out or something. Some people don't like talking about what happened to them. They really don't. So then out of the blue, she messages me again and she says, "Hey, sorry, I got really busy." That's what she first said. But then when we talked, which wasn't a real long conversation, it didn't take long to say what she had to say. She said, "I'll be honest with you, it really freaked me out. So I thought about not telling you." She's Hispanic, and she said,
I don't want to speak it into
exactly. In our culture, some people don't want to speak it into existence. And so I told her, you have a responsibility to the universe to tell us what happened. The Akashic Records is watching. I'm joking. I wasn't that heavy-handed with her. But what was that?
What is that?
It sounds like someone being dragged next door, or like
There's nobody next
or
door.
maybe there's like a homeless person downstairs.
No,
dragging their
that
car
was-
down.
Hear that?
That was over here.
That was
dude.
definitely like a body being dragged around.
That's like where's the chains, Like, no, that was weird, that sound. But anyway, she tells me this story, and she says, "Look, I'm going to tell you something, and you're going to think I'm crazy." It's 100% that they say that. Okay, I've heard this before. Like just so weird. Now, one day, and this is just a little sidelight to this. There is a not a Chipotle. What do we call it here? Freebirds.
Yeah.
And y'all two and me and Zane were all in line to get a burrito one day. This was back when I could eat the burritos without without my wife. I think she's my mom. So she's always like slapping stuff. Get out! Get that out of your mouth! You can't eat that. That was back when I could eat something a little when I wasn't So I went in there to get some food, and I was picking up something for her too. And there was a guy that worked there. He started telling me he's in line. This guy's in line behind us, and he said, "You're gonna take him crazy." He starts telling me his story about alien, that he saw. And the guy in line, we go to get our food, and we were about to leave, and he comes up and he goes, "Hey, do you have another one of those business cards?" And sure enough, he had a story. And so that's how you get them. I mean, these are just people we meet out and about. I don't know how many today. When we were eating dinner at Freitas. Mm-hmm. A shout out to Paul. I mean, he's the Dylan, all the people that work there, nice people. He had some stories. He's from Ireland, from Shannon, Ireland. And he gave us a couple stories just while he was waiting on us. And said he was going to give us some more. And he had one that when he lived in Connecticut. Can you imagine that? You're in this haunted country, and then you end up in Connecticut. And he's like, "It's very haunted in Connecticut." I'm like, "You're from Ireland, dude, Anyway, so thank you for that donation, Kate. So Monica gives me this story, and she says, "I'm going to tell you this." She's like, but I don't want to talk about it on the show or anything like that. You tell it, and you do a good job of that. I've seen several of your episodes, and so I said, okay. She says, "I work at this particular HEB," and she doesn't even want me to tell you the location because she's afraid of this person. And she had offered to have me talk to her sister, who also works there or used to work there, and then a guy that works there with her, just to prove that she was not making this up. Multiple people have seen, according to her, this woman in line, And when she looks at them, her eyes, when she blinks her eyes, she does kind of like, what's going on? She does kind of like this double take, like this double, eye blink thing, and her eyes are slitted up. And she said they've seen it, and her eyes go from like white to yellow.
Gross.
And what's going on? It's like
I don't know.
What is it?
It's in the group.
Oh, okay.
Chat, whatever.
Something I need to know?
No.
No.
Okay. All right. So her eyes slitted up, and she says, so one day, she goes, I saw it. I was bagging. I was helping another cashier. It was toward the end of the night, so I was helping bag, and this woman got angry because she was trying. Those little yellow. We have this thing called Combo Loco, and they pull the little yellow tag. Mm-hmm. Well, you know what that is, right? Y'all too? The little yellow tags they have where they're like light yellow. We use them all the time. Like they give you a discount, like a coupon.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And you buy an object and you get another one, like chips, you get salsa, whatever.
Yeah.
Well, she had 2 or 3 of those, and she was trying to use them, stack them over and over again. And the cashier, and she told me that girl's name, but that's not important. I'm not going to say it. But that girl, we'll call her A. A tells her, no, this, she's like, you didn't, the lady goes, you didn't give me my discount. And A tells her, yes, I did. You're trying to use 3 of those and you only have 2. She's like, oh, so I need to go back and get 3? And she's like, well, if you want me to use this coupon, yeah. And she's like, oh, well, F it. Then never mind. Keep it then. You need it more than me. And she opened her mouth. Okay. And this girl, Monica, that was bagging, helping her to get to, she was one of the last customers, right? She said she comes in at the end of the night. But I can't say that because we do it too. I was like, we do it all the time because you're closing too early now. But I understand that. But she says this woman always does this, always gives an attitude. She says she literally snapped her jaws toward the cashier. And I'm like, okay, well, anybody can go like that. And she says, no, you don't understand. She's like, she opened her mouth really wide and snapped in the direction of A. And she goes, it scared both of us, like scared the crap out of us. She said it was like her face distorted. Like you could see like almost like a short muzzle come out and just snap. And then her eyes slitted up, and she said she kind of got down and hissed at him like a lizard. And now, when my friend Chad used to work, or not your dad, but this other guy, my friend who I have talked about him before on the show, he had an abduction experience when he was working at HEB. I think it was at the one on Old Torf years ago, like 30 years ago, 20 something years, I don't know. He had a weird story about somebody who had told him a story, kind of similar to that somebody got really upset with a Night Stalker because they couldn't help them find some brand of frozen pizza or whatever. And when he looked over, the guy, this is what he said. And it was when I remember him telling a story a long time ago, but I couldn't remember what the details were. And so I got in touch with him, and he says that when this person got upset, the hairs on their arms, both arms, kind of came out, and their like fingernails got like kind of popped out for just a second, and then they went back. It all receded really quickly. And then the guy stuck his hands in his pockets and was like, oh, that's okay. Like he was mad, which caused him to grow hair really quick, and his nails came out. Don't know the details of anything else, if anybody saw him, like his ears or face or whatever changed. The guy was just looking down and saw that and looked up, and the guy was like, oh, it's okay. Like he was angry for a split second, then he caught himself. But that happened like in the early 90s. Now, this thing that happened here, this was recent. This was like 6 months ago. So she said, this is what she said. She says, I was going in one night to buy some stuff, for my mom. And she said, it was about 9:00 at night. And she's like, and I was there talking to some of the other workers. And one of the workers, who's a guy she offered to me to talk to him or whatever. And I told her it was no big deal. If he wanted to talk to me, that's fine. Or he could submit the report or whatever. And I'm gonna be real honest. She told me straight up. She's like, he's lazy. He's not gonna type it to you. And so I said, it's no big deal. And I didn't have a lot of time that day to talk. So I just said, you know what? Just tell me what it was that he saw. So I'll take her word for it. I mean, I actually met them two together at the same time. So I said, it's not a big deal. So his experience, and I haven't gone back and asked a bunch of questions or whatever. But she said, look, this is what happened. She says, one night I was in there, and he said, you're not going to believe this. You remember the lady that snapped at you in A? And she says, yeah. And I'll call him Jay, and because I don't have permission and whatever to use his name. But he said that what's crazy, he's like, I was in here one night, and I was closing up. Now get this. This is really freaky. Him and one of the stalkers, night stalkers that had come in. She was, like I said, a perennial lagger behind, always the last customer, going in there like every other night and buying 2 items and making them wait. And so they already were aggravated. And one of the night stalkers was like, well, tonight we only have this one straggler here. It's like, there's not a lot of people in here. There's like one more person over there and whatever. So he was going to put something back on the shelf, and he sees this woman walking with a basket, not the woman that had done the snapping, whatever. So she goes up to the front and she checks out, whatever. And then he's like, I go outside to help one of the other kids. I say kids, they're like 19, 20, whatever, and they're getting the baskets. And so they're getting the baskets together from the parking lot. He goes, and we see this woman walking towards her vehicle. And get this, it was a young girl. She looked Hispanic. She had like tan colored skin, whatever. Dark hair, dark eyes, whatever. She gets to her car, and as she starts to go into the car, the one guy looks over because she's good looking, according to these 2 guys, right? And they're looking over at her, and right before their eyes, when she turns to the side, she looks different. And then when she turns back, she looks different again. And they recognized her as the woman who snapped at the cashier.
So her appearance is like changing in front of them?
Yeah. It changed quickly. Like when she got to her vehicle, she had one of those, like it opens up the little hatchback with the mid-size SUV. And she was putting her groceries in there. And she must have money because it was a Lexus. But she's, putting the groceries in or whatever, and they were kind of looking at her. And then when they said that she turned and looked right at them, directly at them, and they just kind of acted like they weren't, and they were like, isn't that, weird, the weird lady that's always coming in here late at night, and her eyes changed, whatever. And he's like, yeah, that's her, dude. And he goes, dude, she just looked at us. She said that this guy, Jay, went home. Nothing happened. But he was just so freaked out that he had a nightmare that she had come to his window and was like looking in at him in the window. And it was a dream. He said it was very much a dream, but he looked over and his window was open, which it's not. He said that there was like this vampiric reptilian thing looking at him with yellow eyes. And he was like, I'm sure it was a dream. And like, I think he told her, like, because he wanted her, I think he wanted reassurance that it was a dream.
Yeah.
And so I told her, I said, well, you might want to tell him, and I don't want to scare him, whatever. He's like 20-year-old guy, I don't want to scare him. But I told her, I said, you might want to tell him that sometimes when people see these things, they do have a dream about it afterwards. And it's almost like whatever or whoever that is putting them on notice, like, I know you saw me. Don't go around talking about it. Of course, the first thing they do is go and tell a podcaster. They're like, I think I got threatened by this reptilian lady. I'm going to tell Josh Turner because he'll tell 90,000 people on his
So
podcast.
much for your little
Or,
plan,
this
lizard.
is 26,000, whatever. By the way, Sugar Britches was announcing 25,000. We just hit 26,000, and we're like 26,200. So
We're growing fast.
yeah, we're growing fast, and so and we do hard work. I mean, but with that hard work comes haters, the hater train. So, that story was really weird. I mean, that was crazy. She said there was a few other things, like she had worked, like sometimes she would fill in at another HEB, and she claimed that one was haunted, and she's going to get back with me on some stuff about that, and that there are several night stalkers at that one that can tell you some really creepy stories. Now, I remember my friends wife used to work as a late night cashier because they used to be open 24 hours at the one at Hancock Center, and that one was definitely haunted because I talked to her and Chuck. Chuck worked in the meat department, and they were telling us all kinds of crazy stuff because there was the city hall was underground there at one time, and I'm not even going to get into the whole story about that. But a lot of weird stuff happened there. Then I had a friend that worked at that Sears next door. It's not there anymore. It's still a vacant building. It's just still vacant. And but that HEB definitely had some weird stuff happen. And that particular place is where that particular Freebirds or whatever is where we ended up getting the story about the guy that worked there who contacted me about an abduction scenario. But yeah, we've had a lot of weird stuff at that particular. And we used to work out, sometimes over there at that 24-hour. And the guys that worked there overnight said some weird stuff about that. So that whole shopping center, something's going on weird.
Like 24-minute, but I mean that just seems definitely for me. It feels so weird having like a supermarket or like a grocery store opening for 24 hours that is also haunted because you already get like the weirdest people already coming in. Yeah. So then you got like the weirdest ghosts just hanging around as well, doing messing with stalking and stuff like that. I can't imagine it.
Well, I don't know what that woman was. I can't tell you. All I can tell you is that people see these things, and it happens quite a bit. So it's just, we get stories like that all the time. I could tell you another one about that similar one that happened at Jack in the Box with somebody who told me about this one that happened at Jack in the Box in Dallas. But, we just keep going on and on and on. So here, I'm going to change it up a little bit. And I got this story here. Let me see if I can remember. Okay, here's a weird one.
See, it's ridiculous, man.
What?
It's the only time that, when I go outside that the weather's like when it starts blowing wind on me, I'm like, oh, stop. I don't even want the hot wind to hit me.
Oh, I thought you were talking, so. Well, he's moved the camera. Well, I thought I was motioning for you to move the camera over because he was talking, but then
I did.
As soon as you did, he stopped talking.
Oh.
Larry, thank you for that donation. Don't forget, Fisher and Sons Roofing. They do a great job. He has done a few roofs already now for people who have been recommended, and he knocked it out of the park. So Fisher and Sons. For all of your roofing needs, he is a sponsor of the show and of the conference. Thank you, Larry, for that donation. Here's a weird one I got. You know what? I'm going to tell you this one. When we were talking about the Mandela effect and we were talking about the nature of reality, and I was on the phone today talking to a few friends of mine from the old days. What I mean by the old days is when I was running a nightclub days, things like that. And here's what happened. How do I start this one? I told you about it, Anthony. You know about this one. We were talking to our friend Loki, and my brother was working at a job site, and I can't remember which place it was that he was being relieved from, but it was one of our construction sites. And Loki was relieving him, and I was picking my brother up and giving him a ride, and I remember us sitting there talking and laughing and joking, and we were laughing about a story that had happened years ago. I mean, like 20 years ago. And I was hanging out downtown with Tony's stepdad and several of our friends. I was not working at the club at that time. And there was probably 7 or 8 of us from the old days there that witnessed this. And the police that worked down there, they knew me. And they knew who I was. And, if something happened, they would come in and they would sometimes come straight to me and talk to me and be like, hey, Wolf, your guys got into a fight. They did this, they did that. Can you tell me what went on? Or if it was me in an altercation, why did you do this to this person? Or tell me what's going on here. So I'm sitting there at the bar and I'm doing what I'm doing, minding my business, and, drinking my beer or whatever. I don't drink anymore, but I used to. And this police officer comes up, and James, and he comes up, and I'm like, hey, what's going on? And he's like, hey, Wolf, can you tell me anything about this guy's shoe? So I knew there had been an altercation, I wasn't working there at the time, like I said, and I wasn't off. No, I was no longer working there. I had started my company and was like, I was moved on to greener pastures. And I said, look, I don't work here, man. It's been a while, and whatever's good to see you. But yeah, I don't know anything about it. And so I kind of got up because I was curious. I wanted to know what happened. So I walk over toward the front of the club, and lo and behold, this individual was standing there, kind of beat up with one shoe. And he was like, those are my Jordans, you better get them, dog. He's all mad, whatever. And apparently Loki did not care about his shoe, and so he kicked it out into the street. And according to witnesses, somebody had picked it up and walked away with it. Okay? And then I guess somebody was nice enough, one of our bouncers, I think it was Chico, ran out there and said, hey, this is this guy's shoe. And so he had it at the front. And so they gave him his shoe, and that was the end of it. So that's the way that story went, okay? Now, Loki told that story exactly like that to me, my wife, and my brother. And my brother remembers because he was there. And we were all laughing about it. And it was like, this is how ridiculous, like somebody. So Loki had basically been in an altercation with this guy, and he had gotten a chokehold on him, and he did basically a jiu-jitsu move. But then when they tried to separate them, he had continued to like try to struggle. So the guy's shoe got yanked off. That's how it happened. And so, and the guy got beat up a little bit, whatever. So his shoe gets thrown out the door, and then somebody kicked it. I think one of the back door, because we had a front door and a back door right next to each other, entrance, exit. And I don't remember which guy it was, but one of them kicked the shoe and it went out into the street. And when I found out, I thought it was funny. So I started laughing, and he got his shoe back. It was over. But here's what's weird. When we got in the truck, I remember this specifically, that D, and he's right there in the chat. D was like, he's like, it's weird. I remember that night being there, and we were all hanging out, and the shoe got, that guy's shoe got kicked out into the street. He goes, but I also remember the police like walking around the club, making the bouncers like look in the trash cans for his shoe. And I was like, you're right. I remember that. And so then I was like, I even remember like them finding the shoe by where we kept the poker table, which we don't gamble here in Texas, and it's not a speakeasy, but we had a poker table for like charity events and stuff like that. And sometimes we'd have like famous people that would come, like we had, basketball players, stuff like that would come, and they would deal, and then we'd do like a charity event, whatever. So there was a trash can right there, and I remember them finding that guy's shoe in the trash can. They gave him the shoe, and the guy quit making a big deal. That's how I remember it. But that's not what happened. Or is it? Now, here's what I did. Because that bothered me, and I was thinking about it the other day because I was going through my files, and I was like, I have all these weird Mandela effect stories, and all these weird stories. Maybe my memory's not correct. Maybe something's wrong. So I called Loki today, and I said, do you remember this? He said, yes, I remember this. And I said, so what happened? So he told me the same story about it getting kicked outside, whatever. I said, well, do you remember it being thrown in the trash can? And he goes, I do. He goes, but I don't know how I remember that because that's not what happened. But I said, yeah, but I remember that too. And I'm telling you, now, the simple, answer would be, well, there were two different incidents involving a shoe. Actually, there were. But the other incident was very cut and dry. One of our bouncers was overzealous, and he got in a fight with a guy, and he took the guy's shoes in the back alley. And so that's not, and I got the police coming knocking on my door in the office at the end of the night. Hey, this guy said your bouncer took his shoes. I said, who's got this guy's Jordans? Give them back. They gave them back. Okay, it's over with, whatever. But that was a totally separate incident. It had nothing to do with this one, and it was nothing like this one. And now, what was really disturbing to me was like I have dual memories of this, right? So talked to my brother that night, and he told me, Nelly, everybody that was in the truck, whatever. He's like, yeah, I remember it both ways. But me and my brother have a few memories, and we've all talked about this. We all do. Of things that when it's brought up, you remember it two different ways. But I remember it both distinctly happening. So what I did was I talked to Arash, who like us people know by this point, he's in my book, and he runs another bar. And I said, do you remember this incident? He said, yes, I do. And he was involved in the second incident that I'm going to talk about too. This is weird. So here's what's crazy. I said, do you remember what happened that night? He was tending bar. So was Tommy, my friend. Y'all know him. We hung out with him for a few days down in Port Aransas. He owns a big club down there. They all remember the same thing. Except one person I talked to will say, yeah, I remember the shoe being kicked out into the street. Chico grabbed it. Him and Squid had it at the front door, right? I talked to Chico. He remembers it that way, right? Talked to Squid. He doesn't remember it that way. He remembers the cops making a big fuss and him having to go in there and walk around looking for the shoe. He was working the front door with Chico. So this wasn't two different incidents. This was the same incident. Two guys right there standing next to each other, and they don't remember the situation the same. So that is something, you know, I still can't figure this out. The guy lost one shoe. It was his right shoe. I remember that because a police officer came to me, the one that I knew, and he said, hey, and it was his right shoe. He's looking for it, you know, and I look and I see the guy wearing one shoe, right? So this whole weird, like, I don't know, like a time slip or I don't know what it is. But there were two different timelines that kind of split off. And I think I really think that's what happened. Because when I talk to my brother, he has dual memories. I have dual memories. Logie says one of 19 stories. I've only been, they may have been 19 stories about Jordans, but I only remember two. And I remember the one where our friend Quentin took the guy's shoes from the back. I was actually working that night. I was managing. And then I remember this particular incident because the police officer came and asked me about it. But when I talked to the different bouncers and bartenders, they all remember it differently. It's about 50-50. It's split down the middle. So what really happened? Did the guy get his shoe back from Chico at the door, or did they find it in the trash can by the poker table? I don't know. But that was one incident, two different outcomes, and everybody had a different version of it. But it was always just one or the other. It wasn't like one person just went off on some weird tangent and some weird stuff. No, it was just this or that. But I remember it both ways. How is that possible? You look you need something, some coffee or something?
My eyes are just dry for some
Oh, it's
reason.
your eyes,
Yeah.
not coffee? Because you look like you're falling over, dude. He's like, your stories bore me. I think I will sleep now.
I think his face just looks like that normally.
Everything bores me. I look tired all the time, and Tony sounds tired all the time.
And I am tired.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I just
Pretty
have to
exhausted,
put on a good
man.
face. We're very exhausted. We're very exhausted people. We're narcoleptic. Yeah, it's pretty much it. Yeah, Loki, you say you weren't drinking that night. I had just started. And my night already had police showing up, asking me about somebody's shoe, you know. Who was drunk, who was not. No, it wasn't, you know. And D says, was there ever a foot in the shoe that was recovered? You know, I tell you what, man. There have been some weird things that happened at that club. I was talking to a friend of mine. He's got a kickboxing school in Phuket. And you can look him up. His name Nick Almazon. He posts his fights, and he got some brutal ones. He's a kickboxer.
I think you sent me a couple of those.
Yeah,
They're
Muay
pretty-
Thai.
They're pretty
Yeah.
tough.
Mm-hmm. And he's got a school over there. He teaches in Phuket in Thailand, and he's very well respected. We have a lot of friends that fight or in the fight game. Great guy. I've known him for years. And him and my friend Brent that were working there years after I'd already left, but I still would go and hang out and see everybody, you know, the same people owned it and ran it, whatever. And they saw a full-bodied apparition and scared the crap out of them. And Brent and him are really tough guys. I mean, they're not like, geez, Scoop kind of guys, you know. But there have been some really weird things that have happened in that club, and I was witness to several. Thinking about one of the books I'm going to write will probably involve some stuff that went on at that club. I'm not going to get into a big old thing about it because we got other stories to tell. But here's another one. And and we're on this topic, so I'm going to tell you another one. And this one might even get weirder, okay? In fact, I know this one is very cut and dry for me. I remember it one way, and other people remember it another way. I don't have dual memories on this one. Now, and this is a funny one too, but it's paranormal. We were hanging out at our sister club right across the street on San Jac, or San Jacinto if you're not from Austin, 6th Street, right? And Inferno had a reputation, especially on Sundays, for being a very violent place, dude. There were 2 places on Sunday. Our club was closed on Sunday. That you had to watch yourself because it was gangster clubs. That's what they were. One of them was called Eden 2000, down at the end of the hill, at the bottom of the hill, which later became La Boom, or it was Viper Room and then La Boom. But then we had one called Inferno, and Inferno was just like, Sunday was like, nobody went in there unless they were causing problems, dude. Okay, I didn't even want to go in there that particular night. We had just stopped, we'd parked, and we were going to go down to Treasure Island, one of my friends' clubs. So we're walking down there, and they had like this party going on that night or whatever. And so I was going to go hang out. I was invited to a birthday party. One of our friends was having a birthday party. So I went to Inferno. I go in there, and there's a bartender. His name was Larson, and he was Berber. Okay, he was from Algeria. He was Algerian, but he was Berber. That's actually the native race from North Africa before the Arab invasion, after Islam took hold. And so we were hanging out in there, and there were several of us. And now my friend Jack had come by, and he had worked on my windshield, and we were joking around because he has a windshield repair business. So if you're in the Austin area and you need a windshield repaired, hit me up. I can give you his number, and he can help you. He does a really good job. He's repaired several of mine. He's a good friend of mine. And so we're sitting out there, and we're talking, and we're joking, and we started laughing about a humorous incident involving Larson. There used to be this thing called the Flaming Dr. Pepper. Now, I don't know if they still do these, because there were people who would do stupid things, like the bartender says, stay back 6 feet, stay back. And they would put the flame, and they would blow it onto the top of this shot, and the flame would go whoo, like that. They blow it out of their mouth, whatever. And it was very popular, and people used to order them, and it looks really cool. And the drink, actually, when the flame disappears and you drink it, it actually has the flavor of a Dr. Pepper. I'm not joking. If you make it right. Now, some people are like, it doesn't taste like that, but that's because you didn't make it right, okay? Working in a club business for 10 years, I know how to make a Flaming Dr. Pepper. Okay, so eventually, though, TWC or I think it was TABC, they cracked down. They said no more of these because people were getting. Well, this was an incident that happened. These 2 guys, 3 guys, but 2 guys were right there, and they ordered 3 Flaming Dr. Peppers. Larson does the flame. What is this? Amaretto and draft. So anyway, the bartender blows the flame, and one of them, I don't know why this person did this. But he walked into the flame, and it hit him in the face, and it was big. It was a big flame, and it burned most of one of his eyebrows.
Well, play stupid game, win stupid prizes.
Exactly. I was just kind of standing there, and I was just going to take a shot and say, hi, guys, whatever. Jack was actually head of security. Him and Big John were working there at that time. They were good friends of mine. They were there. And then I was going to turn around and leave. Well, I was with Squid, I was with D and Scorpion and Willie and Jerome. Those are my friends, right? It was 5 of us. We're all hanging out. We just wanted to say hi, and then we were going to head down to the birthday party that was taking place, and a bunch of our friends were going to be down there at Treasure Island. So here's the scenario. The guy that was the guy's friend, he said it was his brother, but they didn't look anything alike. But he says, that's my brother, yo. You just burned his eyebrow. He's hurt, whatever, and making a big deal. And the guy was like, I think I'm okay. I think I'm okay. And we all kind of laughed. So they got mad. And Larson was like, hey, I'm sorry, man. He goes, I'm not paying for this. He goes, yes, you are. So then the bouncers stepped up. I don't want to get involved. This is not my, but those are my friends. So if I got to do something, I got to do something. And I said, come on, man. Just, if it comes to this, I'll just pay it. no harm, no foul. But this guy was mad. He's like, no, man, you burned my brother's eyebrows off. We're fixing a fight and blah, blah, blah. So he tries to charge behind the bar. Y'all know Willie. He died a couple years ago of cancer. He was a very good friend of mine, and we used to have a Willie Williams art contest we did for about a year on our Paranormal Roundtable group on Facebook. Now, if you're not a member of the group, go join. It's pretty cool. People post all kinds of stories. It's a really cool group. It's like 9,000 people in there. Okay, so anyway, Willie's standing there trying to block this guy, and this guy just punches Willie, and when he did that, I began to fight with this guy. So did several of my friends. We began to fight with these guys that were there with him, including the gentleman who was dumb enough to walk into the flame, and they all got a lot worse than what it should have been. It should have just been like, here you go, here's some free drinks. Sorry this happened, even though it was your fault. And now go get your eyebrow growed back. Go have a good time. Go get drunk somewhere else.
Go flip a coin, Two-Face.
Yeah, Two-Face. But that's not what happened. So this guy charges the bar, and I very distinctly remember him hitting Willie. So one night we were at one of our, I'm not going to say what it is, but it's a not a construction site. What's it called? Apartment complex on the east side. And it was me and you, Tony, and Zane and Russell Clark. Mm-hmm. So Willie's, before he passed away, he was working for us for about 2 years before he passed away. And Willie told y'all that story, and we were laughing about the guy getting his eyebrow burned off. Okay, right? So Willie tells you this story, and everybody had a good laugh, you, Zane, and Clark, and everybody, and it was funny. Willie had, the next day, he had a bad cut on his mouth. His brother Rod, okay, who's still alive, Rod goes and picks him up and says, dude, because he said he needed to go get stitches. His mouth was all cut inside. He said, you need to go get stitches, man. It's bad. So he took him to the hospital. Well, I remember that. Scorpion remembers that. Squid remembers that. And so does Diablo, right? Well, this is what happens. When I was talking about this story, right, telling this story, and Jack, we were outside, and Anthony, you were outside with us, and then when Jack tells that story, he says, Jerome got punched. And I was like, no, it was Willie. And he goes, nah, dude, I was right there. It was Jerome. Now, none of us had really, I had just gotten there. I had one shot. I was not drunk. None of us were drunk. We were all pretty sober, okay? And he said, no, it was Jerome. And I'm like, I don't remember. I don't think so. So a couple weeks go by, and it kind of bothered me. So I did talk to you, Tony, Zane, and Russell Clark. And each one of you remember Willie saying that it was him that got punched after that. Yeah, right? So I thought Jack was, what? Go ahead.
I was going to say, because he said, like, oh, I had a cut in my mouth because of it. So
yeah.
Like, that's why he remembered it specifically.
Mm-hmm. And he had to go to the hospital the next day to get stitches. Well, here's the crazy part. Jack insisted that it was Jerome, so I thought Jack's just mistaken. Yeah. He's been working in the sun. Maybe I don't know, maybe he just doesn't remember it correctly. He doesn't drink or do anything anymore, so it must just be the sun, whatever. He's just, and he don't remember it, so it was a long time ago. So I just chalked it up to a bad memory. But he was insistent that it was Jerome, so it bothered me. So I reached out to Jerome, and I was like, Jerome, he works at Tesla. He's a good friend of mine. He's out in California. And I said, hey, do you remember this incident, blah, 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 with, the person getting the eyebrow? He goes, yeah, I remember that. The guy he goes, I got punched that night. And I thought, oh, yeah, well, we all got into a fight, right? He goes, well, no, I was trying to block the bar because the guy was trying to charge the bar to get to Larson. And he goes, and the guy punched me, split my lip. And I was like, oh, my gosh, wait a minute. That's not how I remember it. But then when I was talking to Scorpion and D, they started to remember that it was Jerome, that he had gone in and acted, because he was a medic in Germany and he was in the Bundeswehr. And he's his dad's an African-American, his mother was from Germany, whatever. And he sewed his own inside of his lip. He just, like a trooper, dude. Like it was bad, right? Well, I remember that. But I also remember Willie going to the hospital to get his lip fixed, but I remember that night very specifically Willie getting punched right there at the front of the bar, like going to behind the bar. So I talked to Big John, talked to 2 or 3 other people, and it's split. So I talked to Arash, and I said, Arash, I need to talk to you. And I said, I met him and Reinhardt, and we ate at Spinners. and I had dinner with him. And I said, "Hey, I got a question for you. There was a night you were bartending next to Larson, and you were upstairs. Larson was downstairs. You were bartending upstairs, and it was him and Sammy. We call him Big Sammy. And I talked to them. They were all there at the club. And I said, do you guys remember this incident? Unanimously, they remembered it being Willie. So I'm like, okay, y'all remember this like I remember this, right? But then the guys that were there, like Jack and John, the bartender, all of them, they remember it being Jerome. And Jerome remembers it being him. But Willie remembers it being him. What's going on here? That can't possibly be correct. There weren't two incidents involving a flaming Dr. Pepper burning a guy's eyebrows off. There was one. So if you stop and you look at this story, you're sitting there going like, what is going on here? There has to be a mistake from somebody somewhere, or there were two separate timelines that once again kind of diverged from one another. And all these people are real people. I mean, I've known all these people for a long time, and I don't know what to say. Hey, Mike, how you doing? Mike from Abnormal Investigations. So I don't know how to wrap my mind around this. It's just one of those things where, I went into it and I did some research, and it was freaky, and I don't know where the truth is on this one, because I do remember Jerome sewing up his lip, but I don't remember him being the one that got hit in the mouth right there at where the bar, where you go behind the bar. I remember it being Willie and him getting knocked back and getting hit by liquor bottles going backwards, and me just going crazy on those people because he hit my friend. I don't remember it being Jerome, but Jerome remembers it being Jerome. So how does that work?
I mean, I'm sure he would remember getting punched in the face.
Yeah.
And I think really the only third option here that we're not looking at is it might have been an octopus man that just hit both Willie and Jerome at the same time.
Well, they would have both haven't had to have fallen back into the liquor bottles.
I mean, I think maybe it's like it could possibly be tied to like a collective energy in a certain place being like so unstable, because I mean, if you've ever been to nightclubs at night, especially over the weekends, there's nothing stable about that energy, and it's like it's really concentrated. Like everyone's there to have a good time, yeah, and that's how it starts. But then you add alcohol, and substances, and the whole energy of the place just becomes like this unstable. It's like a powder keg. It's not steady. There's nothing calm about it. So maybe like that, I don't know, maybe that has something to do with like maybe the more instability there is in the collective energy, the more prone that place is to having like time slips or what is it called? Like realities merging or changing.
Well,
like that's
Definitely
that's where
energy
dual
colliding for
memories
sure.
I
come
think
from.
I think it's a little bit of that, but I think like it doesn't have to be so that they
Rigid?
rigid that they're colliding. It could just be that, if you look at how alternate universes work, it might just be just a single thing change. Like that's the only real difference, is that in that little moment, there's just one thing that's different. So because that energy is so high, that could have happened both ways, but in that other universe, it was just Jerome in that spot. But because the energy is so chaotic, they both remember it because the veil is thinner at that moment. And then it kind of just, I don't really believe, like, I don't think like they collided or anything like that. I think it was more like they just had memories of the event. And like in Jerome's mind, in the universe that he was at, he got hit in the face and his mouth was bleeding.
And somebody said they could have both gotten hit. Yeah. But they weren't both getting hit the way that
the start of the fight
that started. Both of them accepted that they were the one that got hit at the start of the fight, and that's not the way I remember it. I remember Jerome being next to me and Willie being across.
I think Dick Richards has a good point too in his comment. He says the frequency of the music and beat count affects it too.
Yeah. Yeah, because let me tell you something, folks. Downtown Austin has like 300 bars and nightclubs all crammed down there. And people die down there, like all the time. I'm not joking, okay? Don't let them fool you and tell you, go down there and have a good time. It's not safe anymore, believe me. Never really was. It always amazed me how people would just go out there for a good time to have fun, whatever, and then end up not making it home. Ben Stolen said that flaming Dr. Pepper drink probably altered the glitch of the incident. Maybe. I don't know. It's...
I think, I mean, I keep saying that people maybe think like they both got hit, but like you would remember if you got hit first and your mouth is bleeding from that, especially if you had to sew it in the stitches yourself, or you had to be the one to go to the hospital to get the stitches sewed in. So you would remember when that happened, and you would remember like, oh, this is the very first punch that was thrown after this guy charged the bar. It was a very specific event that happened. It wasn't like, halfway through the fight, oh, I got hit. And then, Jerome's like, no, I got hit. This was the very beginning. This was like the start of the fight. So it doesn't seem likely that they would both remember that event that, like, as similar as they were saying they did. And it'd just be like, oh, that thing happened to both of them at the same time. I just don't think that that's the case where they just both got hit. And then they both are remembering it because the same thing just happened to them at the same time or something like that. I think that explanation doesn't really make sense.
When I look back on all the weird stuff, and I've got guys from the old days and gals too that'll hit me up and tell me, do you remember this? Do you remember that? And I'll go back and I'll be like, yeah, I remember that. There was some weird stuff that happened in those bars and clubs, and I worked predominantly in one. I helped out a few times at Inferno and down at Eden 2000. Then I worked at a place called The Realm, where there was a really, really, really bad fight. And there was a shooting, and then one guy got run over. It was all kinds of violence and crazy stuff that went on at these places. And like I said before, blood and emotions saturate the environment. And I don't know if it's something that has to do with the environment that creates this soup, this paranormal soup. I don't know what it is. But there's a lot of stories that come out of those places, a lot of weird stuff that comes out of places where liquor is sold. And I think it's funny that they call liquor spirits, it's weird. I don't know what could have, caused there to be two different time streams, but I'm convinced that that's what that was. Just like the shoe incident involving Loki throwing the shoe out into the street. Two different things. One story is that he threw it in the trash, which was Arash said he saw him throw it in the trash. When I talked to him, it was two different things. Here, I think he was the one that said he threw it. He saw him throw it in the trash. Chad, him and Beto, same thing. They said they remembered it, him throwing it in the trash, but Frazier at the exit, and Logie himself remembers throwing it out into the street. The Chico remembers it going and getting it from the guy who grabbed it, because he knew there was going to be a problem, which is smart. These guys are veterans; they've been doing this stuff for a long time. They knew what was up. I don't really, I can't tell you what was going on there, but I have a passel of stories when I was looking through my files of stuff that people had given me. Of one story in particular, this is another one, but this is I don't know if this is cryptid, ghost, what do you want to call it? But I was looking through, it was a bar called Cheers, and I'm not going to say this, but it was never. Let's put it this way: that bar never had anybody in there, like hardly ever. There's nobody ever in there, and it was there for like 30 years. It might still be there, and so I'm going like, come on, man, what's really, I don't know. There's nobody ever in there, but anyway, this girl, she told me this crazy story. She sent it to me, and it was a bartender friend of mine who worked at a club or a bar called Copper Tank. She's no longer there. And I think she worked at Maggie Mae's too, which I think is still there. And her boyfriend him and Dee got into a bad fight. That's why I remember this. And I'm talking like they were going at it. And this guy was way bigger than D. And I didn't jump in because it was one-on-one. And even though the guy was like, about my height and probably outweighed my brother by about 50 pounds, my brother eventually got the upper hand, got him from behind because we trained and stuff, and got him out, choked him out, whatever. And it was a bad fight. Now that guy's girlfriend kind of messed up. She ended up dating my brother after that because I don't know if she was like, ooh, like he's the stronger guy. I'm gonna, or maybe there's something I don't know that started off with that. I don't know. I just remember there was a fight right there at at Copper Tank, and my brother got the upper hand on this guy, and it was 1-on-1, and our friend was managing it at that time, Squid. So we were just like respectful, and we just kind of let it go. We stayed out of it. The bouncers eventually broke it up, but my brother was getting the better of him. So I remember her specifically. Her best friend, her roommate, whatever, we went to a party one time down off of South First. They lived in some apartments, and we all had a get together after hours party. And I'll never forget, she gave me a story, and I wrote it down, and I just I say never forget. I remember it now, but she wrote down a story that I thought, man, I'm always going to, remember this. And so I was going through my computer, and I saw that on there, and the title that I had put on there was Girl Kisses Alien. So I thought, what is this? So I looked at it, and lo and behold, this girl who, her name's Susan. We haven't talked in 20 years, whatever. But she told me a story that she was hanging out with her friends at Cheers Shot Bar. Some of her friends had come down from, I think, Colorado or somewhere, or Utah or something. And because I think that's where she was from or something. And she said that they were all hanging out, and they met these two guys, and they were like super cute, as she says. She starts kissing this guy, and her friends, they were grossed out. Like, they were like, he goes to the restroom, and they're like, ooh, you kissed that guy? Did you see him? He's so ugly. And she's like, what? He looks good. And so I thought maybe it's a difference of opinion, right? Or maybe she just drank enough to where he looked good. That happens too. Trust me. I know how it goes. Beer goggles. So she says, she goes, I'm thinking, maybe something's going on here. My friends are just like, let's go. They're giving me the creeps. These guys are weird. So she walks back to the bathroom where he's at. The men's bathroom's right there, right past the woman's bathroom. So she just goes to the men's bathroom and just kind of opens. This is crazy. She opens the door and she looks in, and she sees what looks like in the mirror, this guy, this is what she said. She said it looked like he was putting something on his face, like a mask, but it was more like flesh. And he was like pushing it onto his face. And for a split second, she saw this weird, red. She didn't know what it was. And I said, red could have been like his blood or meat, from his face,
Mm-hmm.
And she says, no, it was smooth. It didn't have any, there wasn't any fluid or anything like that. And she said, and when he put that thing on his face, it kind of clicked into place. And he looked over and he blinked his eyes a couple times, and his eyes kind of went, like they flipped forward. And he looked at her through the mirror, and she took off running. And she grabbed her friends, and they got out of there. And so when they got to the next bar, when they ducked into a place called Daiquiri Factory, it was there for a long time, not there anymore. And when they ducked in, and I knew the guy that used to run, his name was Kurt, he was a good friend of mine. He was a power lifter, big guy. And they were like, there's a guy down there. And she just said he was an alien. She didn't know what he was. And he was like, okay, well, and Kurt's like, ladies, man, well, I'll take care of you. Oh, come on, let's have a daiquiri, I always was jealous of because those guys had the easy job down at Daiquiri Factory because there's all the girls went in there. It wasn't gangsters and shootouts. It was just come in and have a daiquiri, ladies, and whatever. So anyways, they duck into the Daiquiri Factory, and they're telling a friend of mine and my other friend David, who worked at Shakespeare's. They were all in there. All these bars and clubs were all on the same street, folks. I could do a whole show about this. But they were there talking, and so I talked to David later on because I got this story from this girl's roommate, and so I followed up on it. And I talked to David and I talked to Kurt, and they said, yeah, these girls were hysterical. They swore up and down that this guy was an alien. So we walked down there, me and David, because David was his best friend and his roommate at that time. And these guys were gym rats, and I used to see them at the Gold's Gym all the time. We'd work out together. So I went down there, or they said we went down there. We went down to Cheers, and we didn't see these guys anywhere. So we just turned around and walked back. And so I tried to follow up. went down to Cheers, the weekend after she had told me that, because it had been a couple months. Bartender had no recollection, didn't know anything about it. So that didn't do me any good, but I tried. And then I remember her friend, she said, my friend told me that it looked like on his jawline on both sides, because the one friend was on the one side, the other friend was on the other, that it looked like he had like red acne, like it was red. So that's why they thought he was ugly. But she thinks it was his skin like slipping off of his face. That's what she said. And so I'm going like, but down there, when you got thousands and thousands and thousands of people who come through there every weekend, you don't know what's what, Easy to blend in. If you were some sort of weird alien, reptilian, werewolf, whatever you wanted, you could blend in down there. I mean, it would be the place to go, because nobody's going to give you a second glance if you look totally messed up or weird.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There was a guy that was walking down the street one day, and he just pulled his eye out of his head right in front of us. And he had one eye, but he freaked us all out. We were standing, he goes, "Hey guys," he goes, "I'm keeping an eye on you." And we all just kind of, whoa. And then we laughed, and it wasn't anything supernatural. It was just a guy who had one eye. But that's the kind of stuff you would see like all the time,
Just the other day, what was it? We were driving, and like we made a U-turn underneath the 183 bridge, and like we saw two like homeless people. What were they doing? But like we just like there were two like crazy people. I can't remember what they were doing, but like we made a comment on it, like look, see, like this is just normal here.
Yeah, I mean, we also remember that guy who would wear that wizard costume and ride the bike or whatever.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was just
that
wild
guy
thing.
like told the cops on me one time, said I kicked him. and that's weird too. That may be paranormal, because I was standing next to the guy, and he kind of lurched forward, and we were in a place called Shadow Lounge that was notoriously haunted. And I remember him going forward, and he just kind of looks around and goes, "You kicked me." He's a little gnome guy, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, I had never had a problem with this guy before. He sold flowers on the corner. And I was like, what are you talking about? We all just called him Wizard because he wore the wizard hat. And I was like, what are you talking about, Wizard? I didn't touch you. And he goes, "Wolf, you kicked me. You kicked me in my leg." And he kept saying it. And I was like, I didn't touch you, man. I'm standing here. I'm ordering a drink from my friend Joe Money. We called him Joe Money. And I was like, I didn't touch you, dude. And so I walked away from him. And then the cops come in there. They know me, and I'm not going to waste my time kicking that guy. Okay, there's no money in it. So they come in there, and they're like, "Did you kick him?" I'm like, "No." "Does he look like somebody I would kick?" And they were like, "Okay." And then they told him, "Get out of here. Go, get out of here, kid. You bother me." And they left me alone. But it was just ridiculous. I remember that, and I often wondered about that. That's weird that you just said that, and we're talking about this. See, synchronicities. Because I remember that, and later on, I was talking to Joe at the end of the night, and Renee, who was the owner, and then talking to the manager, who was, y'all know him, we call him Eddie Versace, and then, D and Squid, we were all there, and I was like, did this guy, he says I kicked him, and then Joe goes, could have been the ghost. He goes, sometimes people say people push them or touch them or whatever. And I never had anything touch me there, thank goodness. My brother had a weird experience upstairs. But I don't know. That place was creepy. It was weird. I got a really bad vibe in there. There were some bad brawls in that place that I didn't want any part of. It was just like, I don't want to be in here. This is stupid gangster crap. Gangsta, not gangster. And so I just was like, I'm not into this. But there were some really bad things that went on down there, and we got a passel of stories out of that whole. I mean, you could write a book, and I might just write a book about 6th Street and downtown and the Warehouse District and Rainey Street and all these other places where all these notorious things went on. That whole downtown area is just jacked up. And then when you find out that the club that I used to work in was once a stable, and was also once a brothel. So who knows how many people, and then my friend owned the Caucus Club, where a very famous incident a guy got killed there. He was a gangster, a gambler, back in the 1880s. He got tossed down a dumbwaiter shaft, whatever, and he fell to his death because he cheated at cards, and they claimed that people would see this gambler upstairs. They'd see him throwing cards on the table. And one of my really good friends claimed to have seen him. Stuff, y'all know Stuff. And he was like, no nonsense, not like I'm scared, like he went up there and he saw that, and he freaked him out. He was like, dude, I'm not going back up there. And so it was just, the whole thing was just like the Wild West. And if anybody ever comes to Austin, you really want to, because me and Loki thought about doing this, starting a ghost tour and just taking people downtown. If it wasn't so dang dangerous now. And I thought if you want to, maybe during the day, and it's not 1,000,000 degrees out, come in the fall or something, and I could take people around and show them where a lot of these things happen. I'd have to go through and meet all the new owners. I know some of them that are still down there, but yeah.
Definitely during the day. It's the ghosts and demons down there are the least of your problems nowadays.
Joe
Joe
Breezy.
Breezy has a one-sentence horror story.
Oh
was
my
wasted on 6th
gosh.
Street one night and almost macked
on Leslie.
'cause I saw him from behind and thought he was a chick.
Folks, if you don't know Leslie
man.
now Leslie was a very famous transvestite and worked. He was up and down 6th Street. Didn't work down there, nothing like that. He just danced around, and Loki said, "Gross," but he knows who he was, and D knows who he was too.
Yeah.
Breezy, you were making a huge mistake. But here's a funny story about Leslie, and this is a little bit a weird story. It's not super paranormal, but it did happen at a place that is haunted or was. So see you at the conference driving down from Minnesota. Thank you, Liberty. I thank you for that donation. I can't wait to see you guys. Michelle Collins, thank you for that. Larry Fisher, Kate Hunter, Melissa Purvis, thank you everybody who's donated. We really appreciate it. It's all going toward the conference. So here's a crazy story. Leslie had ran for mayor. Now, Leslie was not, like he wasn't like going out there leading marches or anything like that. He just liked to mess with people. Yeah. And he was just a goofball. And so there was he was homeless, and he would wander around, and get this, he was a lawyer. He had a law degree, right? This guy didn't have to be homeless. He chose to be homeless. So he would push his cart, and one day he was up by the drag. We call it the drag. It was on Guadalupe. And I was working at a place called Centennial Condos. I was doing security there. And I was parked on the outside of it because I had, and this happens, I've been working for 18 days straight, and I had fallen asleep, and I had a nightmare down in the parking garage, and that place was covered with spiders too. And so I just decided to get out of there, and just went, parked on the side or whatever. And these frat boys, were throwing ice and stuff down at him and messing with him. And so I got out and I told them to stop. Well, one of them's like, F you, man. And he throws something at me. Didn't know that I was in charge of that complex. So I just marched right upstairs. What is it? What is R.I.P. Joe Rogan? What are you talking about? What?
You can't just say something like that and then leave us hanging.
Come on, man. So I'm sitting there in my vehicle, and when they began to throw ice at me, I ran up the stairs and I banged on their door and I broke the little party up, and that was the end of it. Well, I guess that act of kindness, coupled with another one that I did for Leslie when somebody had taken his umbrella one day and was running up and down the street with it. Me and one of my bouncers, Loco, we grabbed this particular individual and took his umbrella and said, "Give it back to him, dude. The guy's not all there, just leave him alone. He's not hurting anybody." And so, we became friends. So when Leslie ran for mayor, and I don't know if he knew how it worked, but people were actually starting a little movement to actually vote for this guy. He goes on cable access television and tells people that I'm going to be his running mate. So I got all these people messing with me downtown. They're like, "So you and Leslie are running for mayor and vice mayor?" I was like, "There's no vice mayor. He just said that. He doesn't know how it works." So I went up to him on the corner and I said, "Hey, Leslie," and unfortunately what ended up happening to him is some guys killed him. He got attacked and he passed away. But it's very sad. But anyway, yeah. So anyway, that's, if you look up his exact how he passed away, because I don't know the whole details, but it was he was not all there, and so I was not mean to him. you know. And one night I remember my brother, he ended up with his girlfriend, and they gave him a ride, and it was New Year's Eve, and it was cold. And the story was that Leslie's like, hey, I got a bottle, you know, of big old bottle of vodka if you guys want to drink. So they gave him a ride to a party, you know. And people were mean to him just because of the way he was, you know. But he was a human being like anybody else. And
I mean, he wasn't all there, but he was harmless.
yeah, he was harmless. I mean, why hurt him or do anything to him?
He died on March 8th, 2012. Leslie's health began to decline after a head injury in 2009, and he died at the age of 60 on March 8th, 2012.
Yeah. He got beat. That's how he ended up with the head injury.
Then Mayor Lee Leffingwell declared March 8th Leslie Day in his honor.
Yeah, he was a downtown icon. You know, and people were like, you know, there were people who would come down and they were really mean to him and stuff, and they'd throw stuff at him. And if I was around, they weren't going to do it in front of me. And there was another guy that they called him the King, and he was a black guy that used to hang out in front of Babes and in front of what's the other place called? Well, not there's Jazz. There was Babes, and there was another place right next door to it. And maybe Scorpion D or Loki can refresh my memory, or Breezy, maybe you can remember. But it was a jazz club, and it was right next door to Babes. Anyway,
I mean, point is
there was a guy that used to be down there playing guitar, and he was very famous. They called him King, the King, whatever. And I remember one day I was walking by, and these kids, well, I say kids, they were probably my age, but they just weren't as industrious, you know. And so they grabbed his hat that he had and took off running with it because it was his tips. And so me and Diablo and Willie chased him down, and you know, dude had like $60 in there. You know, it was like 20 years ago, and I'm thinking, man, I'd be standing out in the corner, you know. But I didn't have a skill like this guy did, and he could play guitar. But I was having a conversation with him one day, which gave me an idea because he was talking about Robert Johnson and the Crossroads. And I believe he died about 10 years ago. Not Robert Johnson, but the guy that I'm talking about. And so there were all these personalities. There was a guy that used to hang out in the corner and had the ventriloquist dummy, and he was really good with it. And he would make it sing and stuff like that. There were all these people, all these different types of people. One lady that was dressed up as a Statue of Liberty, and she would stand still for hours. I don't know how she did it. It was very mind-numbing. I would have been, I don't know.
Point is like it's obviously a very easy place to blend in. Like, there's a reason why Austin's slogan is "Keep Austin Weird," is because we had just the wildest people running around, and
definitely.
So you could definitely be, you know, have half your face melting off and no one would notice. And like, oh,
it'd just be like,
you're just one of the
you're
guys
down here with a costume, huh?
One of the
You
boys.
see a leprechaun, a real leprechaun, and they're like, oh, look, it's a small person, whatever.
I mean, it's not even just like, you know, the wildest people out there doing it. It's just like the normal people too. Because Wolf, you had a friend that would walk around, long hair, look like Jesus length hair, and then he would walk around with a didgeridoo, right?
Oh,
yeah, you remember?
yeah. Yeah, I know who you're talking about. Yeah, I'm not even gonna say his name.
Yeah, I didn't want to say it.
Yeah, he had some serious fights because of that. He would play it, and people would be like, "Can you not stand in front of our bar, right in front of the door, doing?" Because he wasn't all there. And yeah, that's, you know, and he's not talking ill of Jesus. He's saying that he had hair.
Yeah, no, his hair length.
His hair literally,
yeah,
the
it
way
looked
he
like
wore
that.
it was like, and he would wear a robe.
Mm-hmm.
So that, you know, it's like he looked like, but then he would just pull out the didgeridoo and start messing around, and they'd be like, "Hey, you need to get out of here," you know, and I'd be like, "Dude, he's not, you know, these people aren't all correct, you know, in the head." And
I just remembered who it was that we saw the other day that I couldn't remember earlier. That old man that we would always see at the gym with the string. That guy,
the guy that looked like Ric Flair.
Yeah,
and he would wear the pink like tutu to work out in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
like
And
we
would.
were
Yeah.
just passing HEB, and
He
he's
was
like
so
right
rude
there.
though. That guy was mean, dude. Like you'd be working out on a weight, and he'd be like, and you're like, look at how you're dressed. Look at how
Yeah, like
you're
he'd
dressed.
wear like
A halter top and
yeah, and like these neon colors and like
Yeah.
these short
Booty
shorts
shorts.
where his like stuff is hanging out.
Beer Encrypted says, Wolf, any short paranormal stories from Utah you could squeeze in? I'm from SLC, Salt Lake City. If not, just happy to contribute to the show. Yeah, I actually got one from Salt Lake City.
Well, hold on, Wolf. We got to remember this is the first super chat from Beer Encrypted, so we got to remember when they point it
so
out.
we have to
say it because
We gotta throw it
YouTube
on
throws
the-
it into our face.
That's right.
Well, thank you.
But
again,
you know what,
Beers
though?
Encrypted.
And we're not trying to be snippy.
No, it's
because
nothing
we're
against
glad that you guys are doing it for the first time, whatever. Salt Lake City, here's a crazy... I know this one by heart, I can tell you. Salt Lake City has some weird stuff. Now, there was a guy, and you're not going to believe me when I tell you this, folks, who literally he brought whales. I'm not joking. He literally transported whales. Okay, I can't remember exactly. You can probably look it up. He had a pair of whales transported and put into Salt Lake, right? Literally. I'm not joking. I'm being dead serious. And they bred. Okay, now the legend is that they actually died off, or whatever, and that people to this day will see whales, but that they'll vanish. I'm not joking. So I had somebody who, now whether it's true or not, this person, she said, me and my boyfriend were walking around Salt Lake, and he had never been there. She grew up in Utah. She grew up in Provo. I don't know if you know where that's at. But she said that he grew up in San Diego, so he had never been to Utah, and he had never left Southern California. When they got together, she's like, hey, I want to take you and show you everything cool about Utah. She took him to Bryan Head. That's a cool place. I've been all over Utah. I've been all over every state except for the Northeast. So she's like, you got to check this out. So they were literally like walking around the Salt Lake, and they see this hump come up out of the water, and he's like, what is that? And they thought, oh, it's like a sea creature. So they saw the tail of what looked like a whale come up out of the water. Okay, so the woman's name is Sheila. And Sheila told me, she's like, at that point, it just vanished. Like it was just gone. Like it was just boosh. So that's a really crazy story. I remember that one by heart, and I did look into it, and it is said that these people actually transported a pair of whales, and they put them in the Salt Lake. But
Wickham released the whales near the mouth
Wickham, that's his name, yeah.
of Bear River. He intended the creatures to stay in a half-mile mesh enclosure, but the whales broke free within minutes of being dropped.
In. Yeah. And then eventually the salinization, I believe, it was too much. It was too salty or something, and they died, supposedly.
It says they were killed by... that's weird, because there's one that says that, but then another one that says that they got killed by poachers.
Poachers, yeah.
So I'm not sure what.
There's all kinds of different stories and theories if you go down that rabbit hole. But the bottom line is people to this day will see them, and they look like ghosts. So are these the ghosts of, like Phantom Beer says, phantom whales? He says, I live super close to the Great Salt Lake. Well, Beer Encrypted, go check it out and tell me if you see the ghost whales, because that's a weird story. Just like before he passed away, Scott Martin. Oh, by the way, we're not having a guest tonight. He's coming on Sunday because we talked about it, and we agreed that Sunday would be better for him and better for me because I like to tell the stories that I've collected over the week, and I'm chomping at the bit, so I don't feel like waiting until Sunday. So I'm going to probably flip it to where I tell the stories on Friday, because if we go later, that's not a problem, and we can do the guest on Sunday. So, anyways. Yes, Max Brandt, I did. I said ghost whales. Yeah, I know that sounds crazy, but Scott Martis, before he passed away, we were talking about doing a show together about ghost plesiosaurs. Now, Scott Martis had a group called Zombie Plesiosaur Society. Zombie, not meaning like a zombie, but like when they find something like a coelacanth that's been, extinct for millions of years, when it's brought back, like into the public, like, hey, this is real, they call it a zombie fish. Like it's a zombie that's now been revived. So that, and so it's funny how me and Scott met, because I was trying to promote my show, and he's like, what the heck is this? And I said, it's Paranormal Roundtable. He goes, there's nothing paranormal about my group. I said, it's called Zombies. And he's like, no, that doesn't mean zombies. It means creatures who are no longer extinct, and now they're cryptids. People say that they are still around. Prime example would be not only the coelacanth, but the Tasmanian tiger, which to this day people still claim to see. Also in that same area, Megalanius, which is supposedly a giant lizard that lived in Australia. Here's the crazy thing. We were talking literally about 2 weeks before he passed. about doing a show because he was starting to come around to the idea that possibly Loch Ness and Lake Champlain, Nessie and Champ may have been literal spirits or metaphysical in some, shape or form. So that was interesting considering how he started out as just a pure flesh and blood cryptid guy. And then he ended up becoming convinced that there was more going on than just, people seeing what could have been a relic population or the descendants of plesiosaurs. So there's that. Now, here's the thing. We have a lot of different stories and a lot of different things that we can talk about, but it's up to you what you want to hear, okay? So, Logie says, Ocean has all the aliens. Very, very possible. Maynard says, I've heard a story about a ghost T-Rex in Texas. Yes. In fact, there's not just one story about it. There's multiple stories, and we've gotten a few of them. The bulk of them, but not all of them, come from South Texas. So, yeah, very weird stuff. I'm thinking about doing a show on just seeing dinosaurs, people seeing dinosaurs. Me and you, Anthony, were going over the reports the other day. I think I came up with a dozen of them?
Yeah.
Yeah. So very weird. And if you throw in not just dinosaurs, but you throw in like woolly mammoths.
I was going to say the saber-tooth.
The saber-toothed cat stories, yeah. Mm-hmm. If you go to my Facebook page or you go to the Paranormal Roundtable group, I'd say go to the Paranormal Roundtable group. I think I pinned it on there. And you join the group, whatever, it's free to join. Just join, and you'll see all these stories on there. I posted a picture of what looks like I don't know what it is, but it kind of looks like what I saw with my wife and one of our workers named Stefan. I think it was last year. And Stefan came on the show, and we actually talked about this weird creature that we saw. It was like a dog-like thing with big ears, and the head was too big. Somebody took a picture of it, and now they're coming up with all kinds of crazy theories about what it is. And I can tell you right now, there's no telling what that thing is. You can't look at that thing and just go, oh, it's this. People are trying to explain it away. It doesn't look like it's very explainable. Valerie, guys, thank you for that. Pale Crawler, Petrodollars, thank you for that donation. I will say this. I have a story. Now, I've talked about Beaumont before and that corridor. Now, there is I'm going to look up this. It's called Texas City. I'm trying to remember the name of can you look up the highway where this was seen? It was in between Texas City and Beaumont. And I got another report out of there, and somebody said, I've heard you talk about a creature that looked like an upright black cat around the city of Beaumont. He said, I grew up near Texas City. His dad, years ago, this person is a lot older than me, but he said, my dad for years worked down in the oil refineries of Texas City. And then when he got older, he worked down there too. And he sent me a story.
So in between Beaumont and Texas City, the main highway is I-10.
Okay, it's I-10. Is that it? Is that what it is?
It's one highway. There's another one.
Is there a back road, a smaller one? Because
there's another one called 124.
Well, okay. That's got to be it because I wasn't on I-10. I-10's a huge thoroughfare. It goes all the way through Louisiana and keeps going.
Yeah, 124 goes along the coast of Texas.
Yeah, it hugs the coast.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where this happened. So it would be 124, Highway 124. And this individual had told me that they were driving along, him and his dad, and this was back in like 1982 or 1981, I think he said. He goes, we were driving along, and he goes, and like I said, he's a lot older than me, so he was a teenager when this happened. I would have been like in first grade or something. I was a small child at that time, and he was already like, a teenager. I think he's like 12 or 13 years older than me. And he's like, we were coming back from work. He had just started working in the oil refineries. And he says, we see this creature run out in front of our vehicle. And then at the last second, it stands up and kind of runs on its hind legs and then gets back down and goes toward the beach. And I said, dude, what did it look like? And he says, dude, it looked like a cross. Get this, between a dog and a cat. He's like, if you were a mad scientist, this is his words, not mine. He said, if you were a mad scientist and you wanted to create some sort of weird in-between species of a cat and a dog, he said, like if you took a coyote or a wolf and you bred it with like a panther, he said, that's all I could describe it. It was like a canid head with like the snout that looked like a perfect combination between a cougar and a coyote or a wolf. And then he said that the tail was like prehensile. And so he said that he ran right out in front of it, and it got up on its hind legs and then ran across the dirt. He could see the dirt flying off of it, and it had these weird kind of claws on the leg. And he said it looked over and it kind of did like this, like it opened its mouth, and you could see all these huge teeth. He said it was the weirdest crap ever, and it scared the living crap out of him, dude. And he was like, dude, I to this day, he goes, I don't know what it was. I have no idea. So I'm trying to look for this guy's email so I can have him go to the Paranormal Roundtable Facebook group and look at that picture and look at the side view pictures of whatever that creature is that was captured on film here in Central Texas. And no, I don't think it's AI, and I don't think it's fake. I actually reposted that. I usually don't. Like somebody was like, why didn't you post a picture of the Dogman last week? Because I'm not going to, because everybody's just going to say, oh, it's fake, it's AI, or the person that sent it, whatever, and then they're going to say things like I'm irresponsible for saying that. And that brings me to this point. If you read my book, the Dogman book, or the Bigfoot book, the Bigfoot Phenomena, which a lot of people who've read that are saying they're telling me it's a really great book. I'm getting a lot of good feedback on the Werewolf Dogman book too.
Oh, yeah, the best thing you can do is go on Amazon and leave a review.
Yeah. And now here's what you can do. Please, though, read the book. Okay? Read the book and go and leave me an honest review. Okay? I'm not interested in if you want to be nice and help out and just go and say, oh, yeah, it's a great whatever. But I want to know, if you think it's worth 5 stars, then put 5 stars. If you think it's a 4-star book, then put 4 stars. You don't have to lie. I'm not asking you to go on there and lie or tell me any, I'm a big boy, I can take it. But what I don't like is somebody who's mean enough and nasty enough to not read the book, not have any interest in anything I do other than to criticize me, and go on there having anonymously left a nasty review. Okay, obviously had not read the book because it didn't say on there verified purchase, which I think is it's unsettling that they let this person leave a review without having a verified purchase, and then they don't say much about the book at all because they didn't obviously open it or read it. I'll tell you why. I know. They left a very scathing review of me. Okay, not the book. Now, this is going to be fun. Watch. Let me show you something. And it's not like it's hurting my feelings, folks. I just like to be a troll sometimes myself. Who doesn't, right? This guy was being a troll. This person says here, this is very sad. People that have no real knowledge writing books. This man, first of all, he says, I have no real knowledge writing books, right? So I have no business writing books, although I'm out here with my knowledge, kicking it every, three times a week here, right?
I mean, anyone who starts their first book would have no real knowledge about writing a book, so...
Well, people do, though. I'm not going to lie. He's not wrong about other people doing that, because people do that. If he was saying people writing books, I don't disagree with people that have no real knowledge writing books. People are doing it all the time. And they'll self-publish a book, and I'm not going to lie, they really shouldn't have done it. I'm not going to pick anybody out or whatever, but I'm just saying, there's been more than once where I thought a book looked exciting, and once you open it, you're like, ugh. But he said, this man has been offered many times, talking about me, this man has been offered many times to go into the woods by different researchers, but has refused. Liar. You're a liar. You're not an American. You're not an American. You're a liar, sir. You are a liar. Liar. He says,
fake news.
This man has been offered many times to go in the woods by different researchers. No, I have not. I've been asked by Barton Nunley to go into the LBL. Barton Nunley lives in Kentucky. Okay? I'm not planning on driving 18 hours anytime soon to go to Kentucky to go wander around in the LBL. Sorry. And I love Barton today. He's a great friend of mine, but I'm not going to do that. Sorry. It's not going to happen.
I mean, honestly, even if it was just, somewhere in Texas, we're too busy. It's not like we're,
But we do go.
I mean, it's not like we're not wanting to go. It's more like if we have the time, we'll do it. If we don't have the time,
let me finish.
we can't.
Hold on. Here it says he has even written down he has never gone to the eyewitness home, even though, in parentheses, even if it's in his home state. Liar. You're a liar. And you're not an American. You're a liar. China. Liar. Okay. I don't know what you're talking about. Okay. Here's what he says. He has even written down he has never gone to the eyewitness home. Where and when did I ever write down that I never went to the eyewitness home? First of all, this guy does not know. He says to the eyewitness home, meaning there's like a singular eyewitness, right? What is this guy talking about? They let these people out of their house. They let them roam the streets, right? He says, how can you possibly know if the info you're getting is even real if you don't show up and take a look? Because, dummy, okay, I did show up and take a look. If you open the book, there are actual pictures, which I'm sure you would appreciate because you weren't overburdened with an abundance of education. You obviously did not read the book. You didn't open the book because we took pictures that I was there when these pictures were taken of these places that I went to here in Texas where I interviewed these people. Okay. Okay, here it goes. This is, how can you possibly know if the info you're getting is even real if you don't show up and take a look? His own story is questionable as it has changed over time. Liar. You're a liar. You're not an American. You're a liar. Right. My story has not changed over time. My story has been the same every time. So you show me where the story has changed. Yeah, exactly. My brother just said, I wonder if he's Australian. I don't know, man. I can't tell whether this is a person that just lives out in the sticks and doesn't, have an education, or if it's the Australian, or if it's the dog whisperer. I don't know. Dogman whisperer, whatever. He says, how can you trust a person that doesn't, listen to this, doesn't physically checks his witness? This is how he writes. Refuses to do boots on the ground. There you go. Boots on the ground. Boots on the ground. And has an questionable story himself. Okay, first of all, an goes before a word that starts with a vowel. Questionable starts with a consonant. Do you understand what that is? Probably not. So anyway, we're gonna give you, like I said.
He seems constantly confused.
Let's settle this, as Doc Holliday said. Let's have a spelling contest. Okay, Ike, you want to do that, Ike?
Maybe writing's just not your game.
maybe writing reviews just ain't your game, Ike. I know. Let's have a spelling contest. So he starts off with, this is very sad. No, what's sad is what's going on in Maui. That's sad. Canada, fires, all that, that's sad. Okay? Animals going extinct, people, the pollution of the earth, that's sad. Okay? That's sad. How dare you? How dare you? Okay? No, this is not sad. What's sad and disappointing is your fake review, Mr. Anonymous. If you're so proud of your fake review, then why don't you put your name on it? Plaster your name on there. Do what a man or woman would do and say, hey, I said this. I'm proud of it. Right? Be honest, because you're lying about all of this. So it's going to put it in perspective when I read it in different accents, right? First accent, which suspect number one. This is very sad. People that have no real knowledge writing books. This man has been offered many times to go into the woods by different researchers, but he has refused. He has even written down he's never gone to the eyewitness home, even if it's in his home state, which I know nothing about because I live in the outback of Australia, and I drink piss water, my own. It's my home brew, and I like it. I also kidnap people that run alongside the road, and I use a big old hog-killing knife to go after them. I call it my pit sticker. Think of Wolf Creek. That's me. Right. He says, how can you possibly know if the info you're getting is even real if you don't show up and take a look? Yeah. Like I do when I peek in people's homes. his own story is questionable as it has changed over time. Because I know I'll stalk him. So any little discrepancy, I'm going to be there. How can you trust a person that doesn't physically checks his eyewitness? I know, I'm illiterate. Refuses to do boots on the ground research, which I do behind my house. On many, many occasions, I've walked around there looking at the wallabies and such, and has an questionable story himself. Now, that's one suspect. The other one is this. This is very sad. People that have no real knowledge writing books. I know because I've remote viewed this. This man has been offered many times to go into the woods. I've seen this. He has written down, he has never gone to the eyewitness home. He's never done this publicly, but I remote viewed him doing it in his study. He wrote it down, and I can tell you, I assure you, through my powers of psychic, bullcrappery, that he did this. Even if it's in his home state, he has never gone to the eyewitnesses' homes. I know this, okay, because I'm a remote, and I'm the best. How can you possibly know if the info you're getting is even real? Well, you wouldn't know because I'm a remote viewer and I'm full of crap. And if you don't show up and take a look, which I do through my remote viewing powers in the spirit, his own story is questionable as it has changed over time. I'm just totally making that up as I'm trying to convince people to not go to his conference because he's a big poopa cockahead. How can you trust a person that doesn't physically check his eyewitnesses, refuses to do boots on the ground, which once again, I do. Okay. I do put on makeup though to go out in the boots on the ground. I know that's kind of weird and kind of pointless, redundant and stupid, but that's just me. And I have a show and I'm full of crap, like I said. And I'm honest. But anyway, he has an questionable story himself just because I don't like him. Blessings. Now, here's the third suspect. This is very sad. People that have no real knowledge writing books. This man has been offered many times to go into the woods by different researchers, but has refused. For sure, me, I asked him to go, but he said no because I have a history of doing things to people. When I get them out in the woods, me and that person, then they get mad because I touched them and stuff. Okay, so that may be why he said that, but he lying. Okay, he has even written down and he's never gone to the eyewitness home, even if it's in his home state. How can you possibly know if the info you're getting is even real if you don't show up and take a look? His own story questionable as it has changed over time. How can you trust a person that doesn't physically checks his eyewitness, refuses to do boots on the ground, research, and has an questionable story himself? Right? There you go. I'm sorry, folks. I just wanted to have fun with that. I know it's freaking stupid, and I just had to do it because, you know who you are, you're full of crap, and you're anonymous because you're full of crap. The other person that could have been writing this is very sad. People that have no knowledge writing books, stupid things like authors and books, all that learning ain't going to learn you nothing. This man been offered many times going to the woods, deliverance, my different researchers, but has refused. He has even written down he has never gone to the eyewitness home, even if it's in his home state. How can you possibly know if the info you're getting, I say info because I can't spell information, folks. That's a lot. That's a lot. That's a big word. That's a big word. That's one of them presidential words. Not the guy here now, but the others. How can you possibly know if the info you're getting is even real if you don't show up and take a look? His own story is questionable. It changed over time. I'm just going to write that even though it ain't true. I don't peddle in the truth. You know that. How can you trust a person that don't physically go and check witnesses and refuses to do boots on the ground research and has a questionable story himself, even though this guy had a whole house full of people that saw it. And he had a guy that was with him that saw it. I don't like this man, and I'm going to write that because it's my God-given right to write that in this country because America.
Boy,
that's what I wrote. But I'm going to hide behind anonymity. See, here in America, we can hide behind anonymity. It's spelled A-N-O-imity or something like that. So there you go. Timberland on the ground. Yes, there you go, folks. Sorry that I had to do that. I just wanted to lampoon it. It's freaking hilarious. I think it's funny. And yeah, dude, I mean, you know, you got me. You got me. Oh, you got me. I am a total fraud. You got me, man. It's right there. This is sad. People have no knowledge of writing books. Although, you know, when you get down to it, there are some very nice people who wrote some very, very good reviews. And it is also right now #1 new release in Ghosts and Hauntings. So, folks,
Both are.
they
They're
both
number
are.
1 and 2.
We're #1 and 2. So sorry that you hate me, Delbert, but it is what it is. Bree says, I received this book a week ago. It's an amazing, good book. The writing kept me invested. I love the different stories, lots of feeling while reading this book, lots of details. I'm also a big fan of his YouTube Paranormal Roundtable. If you like anything paranormal, please check it out. Sherry Pearson's another verified purchase, a verified purchase. Authenticity, excellent book. Outstanding encounters, incredible witnesses. Mr. Turner tells the encounters in such a way you feel like you were there. I just ordered his Bigfoot book, and I hope he continues to write many more books. I think he will become a bestseller author in the supernatural, in the supernatural real. Loved it. Good read. Giannis, verified purchase, says, I've been waiting for this book to come out. I'm a history buff and follow the author of this podcast, or this book on his podcast. I enjoy the history and research behind the shows. This book is excellent. It just goes on and on.
Ain't that anonymity house haunted?
So, folks, I'm sorry I lost some people. They were like not enjoying the comedy, but you know what it is? The show, you have to break it up with some comedy, because if I don't, I lose my mind, because there's a lot of creepy, scary stuff out there, including that this man, he's probably not in prison, or this woman is probably not in prison, and they're able to move around freely in this world. Okay? You got to think, what kind of place are we living in? This is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous. What's wrong with you? You can't write a book, so you're mad? I tried with them words, but they just keep not coming off the pen onto the paper. It's just too hard. I can't do it. I try to type, but all I do is I turn on the computer and it's just like, X, 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 X. That's all I do. I can't, nothing else.
I think of the words, but when I put them down on paper, they just become gibberish.
So, folks, there you have it. Somebody remote viewed the book and they figured it out. Or Delbert went out there and stumbled over his, taxidermy work, and it just hit him. I hate Josh Turner. Let me go and say something bad about him. Or the Dogman Whisperer. Or Alice from Australia. It's got to be one. Or someone like that.
You never know. Could be
Yeah.
Christopher Walken just popping in.
It could be Is Iris.
Mm-hmm.
Could be El Squatcho.
Mm-hmm.
You never know. It could be one of these idiots. So, funny folks, I just wanted to laugh and lampoon that person, because you go and you write a review about me, not my book. So I'm asking you folks to be honest, read the book, and actually give me an honest, good review on both books. Because that's what I peddle in, is honesty, and what you, the listeners, really,
Anunnaki Pro put a LOL. Did they remote read it?
I think they did. I think she did. So, yeah, check out the books. And if you don't like the books, I would ask that you not say something, but that would be violating your freedom of to ask you that. I'm not going to do that.
No, I mean,
You tell the truth.
as our group is, we would prefer it if you read the books and have actual discussions about it. If you have something you want to put on there and say, and we recommend you do it, just don't go in there and be like, oh, I don't like this one part, so I'm going to say the whole book is bad. Or, oh, I don't like Josh, so I'm going to say the whole book is bad. We would prefer it if, we expect you guys to be intelligent, and you have shown us, all of us here, that you guys are extremely intelligent. So,
Smartest
that's
audience in all of YouTube.
yeah, and that's what we want to show in these reviews, is that, we have an intelligent audience who read the book and either they enjoyed it or they didn't, but it's because of the book itself, not because of other crap.
I think I found the smartest person in our audience so far. David said, I've been sleeping with it under my pillow trying to absorb it, and I haven't gotten nothing out of it. Just keep doing that. It'll work. Trust me.
That's how learning happens.
Yeah.
Ain't gonna get nothing out them books.
Let me learn you something, boy.
My grandpa once told me, he was a very ignorant person. He said my head was always up my rear end. That's not the words he used, but he said, because all you doing is reading them books. He said, reading all them books ain't going to learn you nothing. It's going to make you crazy.
Reading
love
ain't
my
never done
grandpa.
nothing for nobody.
I love my grandpa. God rest
My
his
mom
soul.
had a funny thing she would do.
Oh.
Remember how we were talking about how Asian and Mexican moms would discipline their children? My mom would throw stuff. She that was one thing she did a lot, was just throw random objects. If you pissed her off, she would be like, okay, whoop, at you.
What was the worst thing she threw at you?
A pot that she was
Like
cooking. Yeah.
Like an empty pot? Or
No, it was empty. But like she was cooking, she was trying to heat it up and then she couldn't find anything to grab, so she just grabbed it and threw it at the wall. But one thing that I remember her doing is that she threw a book at me and I was like, "Ow, Mom, that book hurt." And she goes, "See, I told you. Who said books can't hurt you?" No, but she would throw chopsticks. I mean, whatever was in her hand. So, yeah.
Dude, I remember being over there, and I don't know, you were in trouble for something.
I was
God
always in
knows
trouble.
what. Yeah, you were always in trouble with your mom. But like she gave you the, like she was standing in the kitchen and you were in the living room, and she was giving you the business, and she got quiet for like a couple seconds. She just like giving you that death stare, and she just like said, she just goes like, "I kill you, I kill you," and like she's your mom and she loved you, but like you could tell in that moment she meant it.
No, she definitely meant it. My mom she's an immigrant, so she had really crazy ideas, and she would always say the wildest things. And because English isn't her first language, she like would say stuff and not know it entirely what she's meaning.
Yeah, Leo would
Like
laugh at her.
Leo would laugh and make her mad.
It was like 80% there. It's just that little 20% changed the meaning so much, or like I understood. Like now when I hear immigrants speak, like I understand exactly what they're talking about because I just grew up listening to my mom and trying to
Trying to
decipher.
piece it together.
Yeah, it was like I was playing some
Fill
kind
in
of
the
puzzle.
blanks.
Yeah, it was crazy. But I remember she told me one time, she was like, "Oh, I love all my children, but you my son, and I have 3 daughters." Yeah. And I was like, "Mom, what do you mean by that?" And she goes, "I only have one son." And she was saying like, "I love all my
She
children,
could spare the other ones.
but like I would be able to live if I didn't, if anything happened."
Well, Shade Viking says he's going to buy the book just so he can review it, because it gives you power, right?
Mm-hmm.
Michelle
Well,
Collins.
at the very least, it takes away powers from these idiots who feel like, who just want to give their crappy reviews.
Yeah.
Michelle Collins, thank you for that $5 super chat. She says, "What time does the VIP event start on Friday? I don't want to be late."
6 o'clock. So yeah, I just went over that with a few people today. Yeah, I tell you, it's one of those things where, people misinterpret. They're like, "Oh, this guy got to you, or this woman got to you." No, dude, it's just it's what's disappointing is that they let them, without verifying a purchase, do that. But did it get to me? It got to my funny bone because they're so stupid the way they wrote it. It was like they wrote it real fast, so because they were so angry, like his book's out. Oh no, I gotta by this one guy's own admission. I don't know his real name. He just emails me. What is it, Imperial 99? Is that what his email? Something like that? Imperial something. But by his own admission, he's like, he hates me, but he watches everything I do. So who's winning here? The guy that's watching everything and making me money, by watching, or me, the guy that's being like who's winning? Or me, the guy that's getting paid by you watching me.
Yeah. I mean, at the
Every
end of the
move
day,
you make, I'll be hating you. I really don't care. Go ahead. You know, I mean, you're the one I'm living rent free in your head, bro, or ma'am, sir, baby child, whatever you are.
I mean, at the end of the day, we're still on YouTube, and you're sitting there watching us. If you were really made about something and you had something,
well, they don't
to say,
watch YouTube, but they go boots and they put them on the ground.
Oh, okay, so
Yeah.
so he but either way, I mean, if he really was about something, he'd just create his own show and make something of himself. But
Yeah, exactly. So let's go into another story here. We still got some time here. This one's kind of weird. It's another weird story. They're all weird, you know what I mean? But this one is really weird. This one is, the only way I can describe this one is as a werewolf story, and I don't have this person's name. All I have, like I said just a minute ago with the person that emailed me, whatever, I have their email handle. That's it. But they sent me a story, and this person swears it is true and said this, you know, they listen to the show, but they're not how did they word it? Like they're not like listening to every episode, whatever.
not paratrooper.
They're not, well, I didn't say they were a paratrooper, but they say, yeah, they don't listen to every episode and they have other things they got to take care of. But when they listen, when they can, and he said he has submitted this to a couple other people too. So I may not be the only one that tells this. What he told me, and I don't know who the other people were that he submitted this to, and that's not my problem, but he said that he and another friend of his, that goes by the name of Dennis, witnessed their friend, who was a couple years older than them, change into a werewolf. And this is what he put. He said, before you think I'm completely off my rocker and you just go stick this in the trash bin, whatever, he says, I'm going to tell you this. He says, this is the absolute truth. He's like, I am now a 55-year-old man. And he said, this happened back in 1990, which was the same year that I saw what I saw. And it happened the month before. It happened in September of 1990. And he said, this happened in Illinois. He doesn't give me the name of the town. He gave me the name of a county. And it's not important to the story. I learned a long time ago not to even bother with all these, whatever. But here's the thing. I messaged the guy back, and it took him like a week or so to get back to me, which I thought was kind of interesting, because if somebody really is chomping at the bit to send you a story and they want to troll you, or they're going to probably hit you back up because they're waiting to see your response, see if they can get one over on you. So about a week after he sent me this was like a month ago, he sent me a response. So then I sent him another message, and then it was like another week before he responded again. He said, sorry, I'm busy. I work as a mechanic. He says he's a mechanic. And he said, I and my friend Dennis saw our friend change. His friend, he claims, began by dabbling in black magic. And then his friend advanced with this black magic. He said, I would stay the night at my friend's house. I was 18. He was 19. Or my friend that witnessed it with me, he was 19. I was 18. I was the youngest. And our other friend was 21. The guy that changed himself into a werewolf was named Jacob, according to this guy. And he says it was so weird. He's like, dude, I was sitting there at the coffee table, and there was a Ouija board on the coffee table. And we're sitting there watching, I'm sitting there watching my friends play video games. And the planchette began to just slowly spin clockwise. And then it just went, and started going faster. And his friend was like smiling, like, oh, it's cool. Look, check it out. He goes, yeah, I've been conjuring up some stuff, man. Later on, they went back to his room because his mom came home with groceries. And while they were sitting there playing video games in his room, they took the thing, unhooked it, took it, and put it back into the, whatever. He said, dude, the door slammed shut. And he goes, and some clothes fell out of his closet. And he said it was really weird. He goes, dude, I'm sitting there going like, what in the heck, man? And then he goes, I got scared. My friend Dennis got scared. We got freaked out, so we left. He says, as we're leaving, we both witnessed a shadow move from his sister's bedroom into the bathroom. And he was like, dude, this is crazy. Amy says, worst pajama party ever. Yeah,
Even
would be.
shadows got to use the restroom, I guess.
And so, or they hang out there. But he says him and his friend, they left. And he says, dude, I was just a kid, I was young, And he's like, dude, I couldn't believe what I had seen. This was crazy. And they had a talk with their friend, and they're like, you were supposed to go to college, you were supposed to do this, you were supposed to do that. And instead, he began to experiment with drugs, booze, and Satanism. And he says calling it Satanism is putting it lightly. He said this was not satanic stuff. This was deep, dark. They found what they believe was an altar behind a creek behind this kid Jacob's house. And they found what looked like a dismembered animal. A cat in particular. They'd been unalived. And they were pretty sure that this guy had done it. Then one day, when Jacob's uncle was there, and he was in Vietnam, and he was a little off his rocker. And not everybody that was in Vietnam was off the rocker, but this guy definitely was. Jacob was trying to impress them, they thought, by saying, I can change my shape. And so his uncle, he says, oh yeah, boy? He's like, well, why don't you show us all how you do this? He says, I can change my shape and I could kill you all. What he said. And his uncle's sitting there playing with his K-bar. I don't know what a K-bar is. Look it up. It's a Marine Corps weapon, knife, whatever. He says, you wouldn't be able to do anything. I could take you out with this K-bar like that. And his uncle went back to lifting his weights, whatever. He had just recently started staying with Jacob's family, and Jacob's mother had had it up to here with him. And so she welcomed the presence of his uncle being there to kind of keep him under control. He says, you want to make a bet? He goes, we go out into the woods, but you got to tie me up, because if I change, he goes, I will literally kill you all. He's like, I'm still trying to control it. And he's like, really? Now, if this is true, he's like, you should be able to do it right now. He goes, no. It doesn't work that way. There's certain things I got to say, certain things I got to do, and I need a couple days to prepare. Now, doing what we do, we've heard this before. Somebody says, I'm a werewolf, I'm a vampire, I'm a this, I'm a that, and then they might send you a picture of something and say it's them, but you have no way to really know, and we've never seen anybody actually change, because I don't think the people that are doing it actually, I don't think it works that way. But this was a compelling story, nonetheless. So they went into the woods, and his friend said, watch this. And he says, chain me to a tree. He goes, you have to chain me to a tree. This is not going to work. He's like, you can't mess around. So they took padlocks, heavy, and they all chained him to a tree, including this guy's uncle. And sure enough, he's like around midnight, and this was about 11:30. He says, around midnight, I'm going to start to change. And he says, okay. So he says, we sat there and we each had like a weapon. My friend had a hatchet. He goes, I had a 22. That's all I had, And his uncle had a pistol and his K-bar. And he says, I don't believe you. He goes, so his uncle was sitting there kicking back, drinking. Gave some to them. I know that's not appropriate, but this guy was in Vietnam, and I don't think he really gave a crap. So he was just like, well, if you start changing into something, I'm going to shoot you. He goes, go ahead. It's not going to stop me. Pretty bold. So Jacob's uncle says, all right, well, hurry up and do this. As soon as 11 o'clock comes, there better be something or I'm leaving. I'll leave you chained out here. I don't care. So sure enough, around midnight, he said that his head started to jerk kind of back and forth. And at first they were like, cut it out, dude. You're just being silly. You're messing around. You're wasting our time. Then they said that when his head lifted up at one point, it went rigid, and his jaw popped like out of place, like and then came forward, and then his head moved back at a weird angle, and they heard like this weird noise come out of him. He's like, it was something that you couldn't do. You couldn't without. And back then, it was 1990. We didn't have all these special effects like recorders and stuff. Something that
Yeah.
you could do that could make it happen. Computers weren't what they are now. He goes, it would have been money to do all that. And he said, dude, I watched in absolute horror. This is what this person told me. He says, dude, I'll never forget it. He's like, it was the middle of September, 1990. And I watched my friend contort. And it wasn't a long drawn out thing. He said it wasn't like what you see like the American Werewolf in London where he's like,
Bit by bit.
Yeah, and it's like the howling, all that stuff. He said it wasn't anything like that. He said once he started, it went really quickly. And it was like popping. He said, and we were looking at this gray-furred, weird-headed. He could only describe it as like it was just a bizarre. It's not like it's not like you think it would look. He's like, and I've heard all about werewolves and dogmen and all this stuff, and he's like, I've listened to some of your shows, and it wasn't like what you saw. He said it was crazy. He goes, his legs popped backwards, and then he kind of, at one point, he said his legs were off the ground, and his whole body was pinned up against the tree. And he said, and he began to move around with the chains, and eventually he got one arm free. Then the arms began to become more muscular, like boop, 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 boop. And it happened real fast. He said, the next thing you know, he's got one arm and he's yanking on the chain, and we freaked out. He goes, first we were frozen in fear, and then we all took off running. Once they got back to the house, they started screaming and yelling at each other like, what was that? What is this? What are we doing here? Did this really just happen? This is crazy. And his uncle was like, let me think. His mother worked until like 9 o'clock at a store or whatever, a retail store. But she had gone over to play bridge at some friends. Was still gone. It was a weekend. So they go and they call the lady, the friend, whatever, and she's like, doesn't want to hear it. She tells her brother, she's like, look, you've been drinking. I worked all day from 9 in the morning to 9 at night, and I just want to play bridge with my friends. I don't want to hear this crap. I know that my son is messed up, and he's involved in some bad stuff, and I'm about to kick him out, and blah, blah, blah. And her brother's like, look, you need to listen to what I'm telling you. He's involved in some really, really dark, bad stuff. This is not, I'm playing around listening to Slayer albums and I'm evil in darkness, So she's like, takes a powder, says, okay, I'm going to go, tells her friends, I got to go home and check on my stupid son and my goofy brother or vice versa, whatever. She comes home. They're all in the driveway. They're all freaking out. He goes, dude, his mother just kind of rolled her eyes. And they eventually go out into the woods, back behind the house, down the trail. They get to the tree. And there at the tree is nothing. Just chains that are still intact and wrapped tightly around the tree. And they were higher up on the tree, and one was lower. So somehow he had managed to get out of these chains. I asked this guy, and that was when we went back and forth, taking about a week between emails, whatever. I said, let me ask you a question. I was like, do you think that he physically slipped out of these? He says, I have no idea how he could have. He was too big, and it didn't break the chains. I said, so honest opinion. Andrew Valdez, is the show live right now? Yes, my show is live right now. And so I said, honest opinion, what do you think is going on here? If the chains weren't snapped, and these were very heavy padlocks, very thick chains, and you said that he was too muscular and big at that point to be able to get out of them, then what the hell happened? And he goes, I don't know. Where did he go? He goes, I don't know. He's like, about a week or so goes by. He goes, I don't talk to him. And then he calls me out of the blue. And my mom answered the phone. He goes, I was still living at home at that time. He says, my mom says, hey, it's your friend Jacob. And he didn't want to talk to him. But he gets on the phone and he tells his friend, he says, what do you want? And he says, I told you. You didn't believe me. And he goes, yeah, it was pretty crazy. He goes, my mother tried talking to me and telling me that I have to move out. He goes, but I don't want to talk to her. I have nothing to say to any of y'all. He goes, I'm leaving. I'm going to California. You're never going to see me again. And he says, I just wanted to say goodbye. And he hung up the phone. That was the last he'd ever heard from this guy or talked to him. So, very weird, very strange story. Don't know what that was or what that is, and take it with a grain of salt because it was given to me through an email and somebody, all they had was their whatever. But he's like, I assure you this story is absolutely true. He's like, this really happened to me. It happened to me and 2 other people. He's like, shortly after that, his uncle ended up dying. He had some problems and he took his own life, whatever. But he said he still to this day talks to Dennis. Dennis had a heart attack a few years ago and has been in bad health, whatever. But he said that, he still remembers it. And they know what they saw. Somebody says, the werewolf kid is listening to us right now. Well, he wasn't a kid. He was 21. But if you consider that a kid, I would because I'm old. But not a child. And somebody says he's here in California. I don't know where in California. California's a huge state. It's the most populated state in the country. So he could be anywhere, anybody. But I just thought that was an incredible story. And,
It's also a sad story because it's like a story of someone who, it sounded like they had like potential to do something with themselves, to do something positive, and people who cared about them were looking forward to seeing that, and they just threw it all away for whatever the heck that was that he was into. And I mean, for what? Like, I don't know. The whole the allure of like dark energy. It's like you get a quick reward from it for very little effort. Like it really doesn't require the amount of work and honestly suffering that doing the right thing does requires. So the payoff is immediate, but it's not
short-sightedness.
Yeah. It's like a short-term trade.
It's just people who lack the ability to see the bigger picture. I mean, if they did, they would realize, like, hey, what am I really giving here? Because, people who deal with demons, like, what other proof that you need that a God exists there? It's like, okay, these things exist. That obviously means that there's another factor of this that obviously has to exist. Why would I choose this evil side when I know that this evil side is just going to lose? This evil side does nothing good. And like whatever good,
what are you getting out of it?
Yeah, it's like whatever it's claiming that it's going to help me might help me now, but like what is it really doing for me in the long run? They don't think about any of that. And they taste that little bit of power and they're just like, oh, now I'm powerful. Whether you don't realize it's like, no, you're not. You were powerful, and now you're weakening yourself and becoming prey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think some of the truest power, like real power in this world, comes from like, okay, like your grandma Sophie, you know, my grandma Susie,
Hmm.
like deeply,
Very, very religious
yeah,
people.
deeply religious, loving, like unconditionally loving people. That Jehovah, people like that. Just that that grandma or grandpa who is always there for you, who no matter what, and they, even if they know that in your life you're not on the right path, they're still gonna be there for you. They're never gonna condone
What you
yeah,
do,
what you do,
none of them ever made excuses for me either.
and they're gonna tell you straight up too, like that they don't approve of it, but they still love you, and it doesn't change how much they're there. It just unconditional love is the most, I think, the most powerful thing.
Well,
But
Jesus says
it's the hardest thing. It's
it
so
is.
hard.
It covers a multitude of
It takes
sins.
a strong person to express that.
Well, and also like another strong power that I think people don't understand is restraint. You know, like having power and not using that is one of the hardest things you could ever do. But there are certain times where it's just not necessary, it's not needed, and it might be detrimental to you or the people around you when you act upon your desires, whether it be, you know, your desire for power or whatever vices you have, whatever sins that bother you. When you fall into that and let it get a hold of you, which is something we've all had to deal with, you know, in this room and stuff that we're still dealing with. Having that restraint is a strength that when you do go through it, it tempers you and it makes you into a better person and makes you better. It makes you more understanding of other people's struggles because you had to deal with that yourself. And you know, it's easy to fall into power and use it and abuse it and abuse
Yeah,
everything. It's that's not hard.
Hmm.
You know, that's the easiest thing to do.
that reminds me of that verse in the Bible where it says, "The meek shall inherit the earth." And it's easy uh, it's easy to interpret that as that word meek as like someone who's like timid and not not very
Weak.
assertive, yeah, a weak. But if you go and you look at the word, the, the word that was in Greek that was originally used in that verse,
Hmm.
it does mean meek, but it doesn't mean meek.
It doesn't mean weak.
Yeah, that word was used to describe like trained war horses.
Hmm.
It's like
It's
real
basically saying like
power
the
tempered.
steady,
Yeah,
the steady will inherit the earth, not the meek. And
yeah,
that's that. There's a lot to be said about the Greek and Aramaic and Hebrew translations because they don't match the translations of in English. Because in English, it's telling it's like it's something else. And so one of the things that people lose sight of too, Jesus says, "What is it? Benefit a man to gain the whole world if he loses his soul."
yeah,
Jesus was taken to the top of the mountain, and Satan, or Shaitan, whoever was the lead Satan at that time, told him, "Hey, look at all this, could be yours." And Jesus was probably laughing, going like, "Dude, that's like somebody on the corner offering
yeah,
me their shopping cart with a stolen street sign and a construction cone and maybe a half-drinking bottle of Dr. Pepper." It's like,
yeah,
I'm okay, dude. Thank you. I'm good. Thank you for offering your possessions to me, but I'm doing good. And Jesus probably laughed because it was like, what is this, dude? I'm like, my kingdom is in heaven. My Father is, all that is the creation, and you're offering me this little dump, I mean,
yeah,
what is this, like a used car salesman. This baby here, 166,000 miles. Runs most of the time. Yeah, okay, thank you, sir. I'm
hmm,
good. Thank you. Make you a deal. Give me your soul, I'll give it to you. Got 4 bad tires. Transmission's about to fall out of it. What do you think? What do you say?
For
Come
my
on.
soul, that's just a deal. That's a
That's a
steal.
steal of a deal there. Let me get right on that.
I got like
So
many of those just lying around.
so it's one of those things where if you stop and you look at the consequences, is it worth it? Is there a payoff? I don't know. I could tell you this, though. Whatever that guy did to turn into that creature, it wasn't good.
It wasn't worth it.
And I don't believe when people say a lot of this, I hear a lot of stuff about how Dogman is just, they're friendly and good and blah, blah, blah. Bigfoot, I give them apples and they like, they like apple fritters and yeah,
Bacon.
okay, whatever, dude. I have a hard time believing that. And then people see these things low crawling on the ground like spiders. And I was actually talking to a guy. I don't know if I say his name. He's going to be on the show eventually. I'm talking to him. He is a Native American. He considered to be a Bigfoot tracker. And me and him hit it off, and we started talking. His partner, she has been watching my show for a long time, and I want to get them on the show. And he believes that these creatures come from spiders. And before you go, what? Like, it is very commonly held belief by a lot of different civilizations that one of the first predators to ever appear on the planet Earth was a spider, and they came from comets. Tell you something. There are 2 different areas of India where if you go and you ask them, their legends and stories match up to Aztec legends and stories, to Mayan legends and stories, to the Lakota, to the Algonquin, to the Klamath, to all these different peoples, all these indigenous peoples who were in these lands long before people came. The Berbers, they have stories that are very similar. I worked with several Berber, if you don't know what these are, look them up. There's a reason why, and this particular guy's a Native American, he's Choctaw. He told me, he said, I'm going to tell you this, and I think y'all might have heard part of the conversation I was having with him. He said, everybody has an inherent fear of spiders in some form or another, whether they admit it or not. There's a reason for that. Just like me, I'm not as afraid of snakes as I am spiders, but if I see one, I'm like, whoa. You're on high alert because you don't automatically know if it's good or bad. You got to kind of look. There's some weird stuff out there, dude. Weird stuff. I got time for another story, folks, and I have one for just about every category. Most of them are all right here in front of me, so I'm going to let it be the audience choice here. We'll pick one from somebody out here. Bugs are nasty. Yeah, they are.
I want to say out loud David's comment because he's been hitting some hilarious ones. He goes, I bet Jeffrey Dahmer liked apple fritters too.
I like apple fritters.
Yeah.
That's why I said it. But, nobody's ever told me, hey, Bigfoot likes apple fritters. I just said that.
I mean, I
and
think
also, but to be fair, I have not been to the eyewitness house.
Oh, that's true.
Okay, and get the info to see if he does like apple fritters or not. So
I think his point was that like even the most dangerous things can still.
Exactly.
And another point that you said, what I want to kind of bring light to is I really annoys me when people talk about our ancestors like they're idiots because they don't have all the information and all the technology and everything we have today, that they're just inherently stupid or like they're dumber than we are. No, these people were great men. They were great people back then. They conquered tribes. Alexander the Great was not stupid. Napoleon wasn't stupid. These people, without all the stuff we have today, were very intelligent. They knew something. They saw something, and they wrote it down in their legends, and they wrote it down in their lore, or I mean, not lore, in their myths, for a reason. It wasn't that they were like, ooh, ooga booga booga, sun god. It didn't happen like that. There was something that led these people to believe it. It could be mystery. Mystery often leads that they start creating their own things, or it could be
they're grounded in some truth.
They're grounded in some truth. There had to be, and and it annoys me when people will say like, oh, these stories and myths, they're all just fake. How do you know that? Are you saying that all these people are stupid? Because that's not true. It's especially now when you start seeing like what you said earlier about many different cultures that have no way of interacting with each other start bringing around the same similarities and stories, whether it be dog-headed creatures or all aliens or all kinds of stuff. You're saying that all these people just magically all thought the same thing at the same time, and they were stupid enough to just go with it.
Yeah. John Sablon says, Wolf, you have any stories about angels? I would say one of the stories that's going to be told on Tuesday's show, y'all kind of thought that it might have been an angel. I don't know
Yeah.
what to make of it. I don't know. You know. So what kind of stories are people looking for here? Evil, homeless, black-eyed vampire stories, very specific.
And I mean, people have all the knowledge in the world right there on their phone, but they're still the dumbest people I've ever seen walking around.
Yeah, they
So-
do. It's true. Yeah. Somebody says I like Middle East. I have a couple that I need to get on in the live stream. I mean, on the podcast, and I'm going to tell when I come back from the conference. Hellhound, please. Oh, I got those. Vampire ghost stories. Do we have a vampire ghost? Yeah. Yeah, we got some that would maybe fall in that category. You, the listener, would have to decide what you would call that. Giants, I have some of those. I have some about Bigfoot that are like these really large Bigfoot. I'm not talking about an 8, 9 foot tall. I'm talking about 12, 13, 14 foot tall Bigfoot. And I've gotten several of these. Glitch stories are fun. Oh, man. Okay, Brandon, tune in Tuesday. You'll get those.
Mm-hmm.
Giant Bigfoot, Ouija board stories. Everybody's saying something different. I'm not getting two of the same thing. Ouija board stories. There's a
We always got
ton
those.
of those.
And honestly, they're like the start of a bigger story normally.
Oh, yeah.
It's
yeah.
almost always like, oh, well, I started with Ouija boards, and now I got aliens, demons, ghosts.
Starts off with the board, and then, because you're bored, and then it ends up, you're not bored anymore. Some more history. I don't think people are going to want to hear history. They're going to be like,
Crossbow monkeys.
Crossbow monkeys.
Loki.
Yeah, Loki. Okay. Yeah, aliens. How about water monsters? What
that's
kind
the
of water
watermelon.
monsters?
I was like,
There's a
watermelon.
lot of different water monsters.
Do you mean like the deep sea humanoid monsters, or do you want like some
Yeah.
actual like Nessie and stuff?
KD7 says Cyclops. You know what? That's interesting. You know what? Let's go with that one because that's
I don't think
actually
we've done
weird.
anything about that.
I don't
yeah.
think we have, but I have one. And this one came out of Canada. This one was in Manitoba, outside of Manitoba, the province of whatever. I'm trying to remember exactly where it was at. The guy that gave it to me was bilingual too. He spoke French and English. Anyway, he was working in Manitoba, Canada, and they were out near a lake and they were fishing. And this is weird. It's not a real long story, but I thought it was interesting, and I remember this one. I only got this one a couple weeks ago. Actually, okay, I'm going to say this. There are actually two. There was another one because I mentioned here's how it works, folks. Really quickly, I'll tell you. When we talk about something on the show, what happens, Tony?
We get a bunch of stories about it later on afterwards.
Not always a bunch, but yeah.
Well, I mean, we get some.
We get some, yeah. Sometimes we get a bunch, depending on the subject. But I'll say something about, something. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, we have two. One came out of Azerbaijan because we had mentioned the Caspian Sea and the mer creatures that were coming up out of the water, deep sea. Was it called deep sea humanoids?
Yeah,
I
I
believe
think
that's
so.
what it was.
It was deep sea.
Deep sea. Anthony's.
Let me go find the actual number for y'all.
Yeah, you can look it up. But we mentioned these creatures that were like water demons that would grab people and take them to hell. So I have one out of Azerbaijan. This person saw what they believed to be a one-eyed creature that was solid black
Episode 211.
with a diamond eye, which is very reminiscent of a type of jinn. Because it is said that one of the leaders of one of the large jinn clans, or what do you call it? Like a tribe. It's like a tribe. And it is considered to be, he's black and he's got like a diamond for an eye. And I had this person from Azerbaijan say that they were out riding a horse with their two sons and their aunt, and their which would have been his sister, their aunt, whatever. and they came across this 12-foot tall giant that came up out of the ground, but like almost like it was walking up steps, and it walked across this plain, this deserted plain, and it was right in front of them, and their horses reared up and freaked out, and they were terrified. And when this thing turned and looked at them, the eye in the middle was shaped like a diamond, not like perfectly, but it was kind of diamond shaped, like it was sideways, you know, and it was green. The eye was green, and the skin was all black like this shirt, not black like an African person, but like black like your hat,
Ink
like my
or
shirt. Yeah,
ash. Yeah.
like shadow black. And the eyes were just, or the not the eye, the eye was just white in the middle, and where the like where the whites of our eyes would be, that part was green. And so I thought that was really weird. And then it just turned and walked back down, and when it did, the dirt like closed up over it. And I got that story. This person sent it to me because they said that this happened to one of their friends, and their friend gave them the story. They sent it to me because they had heard of something that happened in Azerbaijan, and that's crazy. I believe it was just north of the Caspian Sea. Here's another one involving a cyclops. This guy was in Manitoba, Canada, in that area, and he was fishing, and he's like, I was with my uncle. He's like, and I was just a kid. I was 9 years old. And he's like, and my uncle was, you know, he was young. He wasn't even that old. He's like, my uncle was like 27 or something. And he said, we were with my little cousin, and he got tired, and my uncle's son. And he was like, in his own words, his cousin was kind of a weenie, you know, and he's like, I'm tired, you know, whatever. He's a couple years younger than him. So his dad told him, well, go to the truck, go to sleep, boy. You know, so they stayed out there fishing. The water began to bubble up in this particular lake. And he said he don't even remember exactly. You all right? Yeah. He don't even remember exactly the name of the lake or where it's at. He said it was a place he went to years ago when he was a kid, and he hadn't lived there in forever. He now lives in Montreal. But he said, dude, this thing, the water began to bubble. And he goes, and we were just like, whoa, what the heck? He's like, and it was almost dusk, and my uncle was like, you know, freaked out. And so he grabbed my arm and he said, stay close to me. Because he was like, we were kind of spread out, you know. He said, in the middle of this lake, this thing popped up. If I remember correctly, it started at the arms. It was the way it started was like there were hands, like his hands came up. He said they were huge. It was like a giant. And then he said, the next thing you know, I see this pointy head come up out, and all I see is this head looking side to side, and there was this single eye in the middle of this creature's head. And he's like, I didn't see anything above that. All I saw was the arms. He's like, because then my uncle grabbed me, and we turned, and we took off running to the truck. And we didn't stick around to see what else was going to happen. The way he described it was the skin was brown, and he said there was no hair. It was just bald, and it had a single eye in the middle of its forehead. And it didn't, from what he said, he remembers like the nose was just like kind of like just built like into its face. Not built in its face, I'm sorry. Like it wasn't like how our noses jut out of our face. Mm-hmm. It was just flat onto his face with like nostrils. Very weird. Now, whether it was a mer creature or an actual Cyclops giant, I have no clue. I have no idea. But I guarantee you this, we'll probably get more now that we talked about it, because somebody somewhere, and that's how it works, somebody's going to say, hey, you were talking about this, and now I'm going to tell you I've seen something like this. We have one other story that came out of Iraq. Do you remember Anthony, you remember this, the girl that we met from Iraq at the gym? She gave us the weird story about the Hobbit-looking creatures. Mm-hmm. Okay, she had a crazy story she told us. I think I told that one on the show. She got me in touch with her brother, who was an interpreter over in Iraq, and that's how they ended up over here or whatever. He helped the United States military. And he, when I talked to him, we communicated, went back and forth. He said he was going to talk to their uncle because he had a story of a giant Cyclops type creature that when they were living out in the middle of nowhere out in Iraq, it was killing and eating their animals. And they said that it belonged to a clan of other giants, but that particular one was a one-eyed giant. But it had the way its eye looked, and she described it to me that it wasn't like you would think of the Cyclops, like it was deformed or something. Not like it was missing an eye, but like it had one eye and it was like not correct or something. Anyway, I got to talk to him. He said there's a lot more to it, and it's basically their village was being messed with. They were on the Iraq-Iran border, and these creatures were coming to their village and killing their animals. And they weren't furry either. He said they had hair like normal men or whatever, but they were like giants, just bigger people. And their hands looked weird. Had these weird giant looking hands. But anyway, it was just a weird story. Now, I haven't gotten to speak to this individual to get anything more out of that guy, to find out anything more about that particular, but whatever. But I would love to flush that one out and get the person to tell me more and figure out, talk about their depredations or whatever these creatures were doing. So anyway, that's it, folks, for tonight. Thank you for tuning in. Sorry I lost some people with my humor. I just love the trolls. It's just, I actually enjoy it. I'm sorry. It's one of my guilty pleasures. And I know it's probably not nice or correct, but what they do and say is not nice either. And I know two wrongs don't make a right, but 2 + 2, some people like cucumber, it tastes better pickle. I don't know. Whatever, it's just who I am. It's part of who I am. Some say it's part of my charm. Some say it makes them hate me. And, like I always say, some people are going to gnash their teeth and others are going to jump for joy. But it's a fact that I'm here, okay, right now, talking to you. I'm here on Fridays. I'm here on Sundays. We're dropping an episode on Tuesdays. And when I get back from the conference, we're going to start doing Thursdays because we're going to do a series of interviews. We're going to be doing a UAP project, and we're going to be doing I'm writing a ghost book, okay? And that's going to be the next one, and we're going to keep going. So if you enjoy the content, you like the shows, thank you for everybody who donated. It's been incredible to help. It's been a huge help. Paying for the conference and everything else by getting donations, people helping, joining the Patreon. The Patreon is great. Getting tickets, going to the conference. It's been great. Everything. There's been so much support, and I love everybody. Holly M. I see you, Dave Howell. Thank you, and thank you for that, Gabriel and Craig. Gabriel E. Craig. Says, I hope you'll have a blessed and amazing weekend. Same to you. Thank you, Dick Richards, for always showing up and being a smart mouth. Andrew Valdez, you're awesome. Hope to see you at the conference. Shade Viking,
Sugar
always.
Britches, as always.
Sugar Britches, amazing. Shell Ashley, Jackie Hall. Everybody that's on here, Mickey G, Froetian, everybody. Okay. I mean, everybody that shows up, I appreciate it.
And all our new viewers, too. Everyone.
All of the new viewers and show up, everybody who shows up. Carla says, am I going to sell my books at Barnes & Noble? I don't know. I have plans right now to try to talk to one of the used bookstores, or two of the used bookstores here in Austin, but I don't at this time have plans on selling them at Barnes & Noble. If you guys will go, if you go to the conference, I can get you a book autographed there at the conference. Whatever I have left from the conference when I come back, I will be selling. It's going to be kind of hard to do a lot of shipping, but I'll do what I can to try to get as many people an autographed book. We will sell them for $20, just like on Amazon, whatever. At the conference, we're going to sell them for $25 because I'm going to be signing them, and we're going to be trying to make money, to try to pay for the conference. And so when I return, let's put it this way: if you're a swag, what is it called, a Patreon, and you are a $40 tier, I will give you one of the books, and if you're a $50 tier, I'll give you both of the books and a bunch of swag. So that is one way to get the books. The other way is, if you pay for the shipping and you can buy the book from me and you pay for the shipping, because the shipping, I can't pay for the shipping, especially if you live out of the country or something like that, and I can sign them for you. I'll definitely sign them for you, and I'll throw you some stickers and some whatnot, keychains, whatever. With the book, I always throw extra whatever. But I do need to try to make our money back from the conference, because I don't know that we're going to break even. We didn't break even last year, but we came close.
Oh, we put in a lot of work and came really close.
Yeah, we did, but we
We weren't expecting to last year.
we're not going to. They say to be positive, so I'm going to say yes, we're going to break even, but I don't expect it. I don't think so. It's just really something we did not to make money. We just did it to do it for our fans. For those who are willing to go. And I love to hang out and talk to the fans. I am going to be telling some stories and doing what I do. You know,
Anunnaki, bro, the dinner will be at the conference center.
at 6 o'clock, it'll be at the conference center, or at least we'll probably start eating about 6:30. But I would get there at 6 just in case. I don't know. I think they're going to start serving about 6. I think that we're going to try to meet, and I was going to give a little quick welcome thing, let everybody get in. Probably going to eat about 6:30. So, and then the conference will kick off. We got to talk to Christopher Jordan tomorrow, and we're going to figure this out, because we are going to stream it. It's going to cost $6.95 to have it streamed, because we don't want people, and this isn't me talking, this is what we decided as a group, to just say, well, we're not going to go, we'll just sit at home. And I understand some people have to sit at home. They can't go. You can't make it. I understand that. But if that's the case, we do, like I said, I need to be able to pay for the conference, and you're going to get a ton of speakers it's going to be hours and hours of entertainment. So yeah, and you're going to hear some pretty cool stuff. There's going to be some unveiling of projects, people who have projects that are going to be going to Amazon. We have about 4 or 5 filmmakers that are going to be there. I talked to Doug Hychek today, who used to have Monster Quest. He's gonna be there. Huh?
Phil.
Phil.
Phil Stern.
Phil Stern's not gonna be there. He's in Germany. Dude.
thought he just
What are
made
you
a
talking
show.
about? Huh?
I thought he just made a show.
What?
Didn't you just come out with a show?
Phil Stern? What? That's news to me. I've never heard.
Where's this information coming from?
I don't think Phil Stern made a show, dude. If he did, he should tell me. I didn't know. Brianna says this is awesome. You should charge 10. People spend $12 on Starbucks coffee.
I keep mixing up Phil and Paul.
You're talking about Paul Sinclair?
Yeah.
Yeah, Paul. Okay, folks.
Wolfland. Yeah.
Let me tell you, because a lot of people have already dropped off the chat. Paul Sinclair, he says, Joanne Hartnett says Tony Merkel just did. Tony Merkel made a show? I don't know. But anyway, Paul Sinclair made a show that's now on Amazon Prime. Go check it out. It's called Wolflands. It's a documentary. I've already heard a bunch of people talking about it, saying it's great. What is Magman saying? What's immensely horribly messed up is big planning for this since last year. And I made sure nothing or no one would get in my way unless I have no choice, like being kicked out. What? Why would you be kicked out? Tony Merkel's charging $20 for a show? Oh. I have no idea what he's doing.
Oh, it's airing tomorrow. This show, I guess.
What?
A Tony Merkel show, I guess.
What is it? I talked to Tony a few days ago. We messaged.
The Shape of Shadows.
Maybe it was longer than that. Maybe it was a week ago.
I guess that's his new show. It's called The Shape of Shadows.
It is a TV show, or what is it? I don't know, because I haven't talked to him about his projects. I talked to so many people. I'm pretty sure I messaged Tony. Let me see, because me and him talked like. We haven't been talking a whole lot lately. He's been super busy, and so have I. Hey, man, thanks for the invite. You have one hell of a roster. I got to stay in Tennessee because I'm going to shoot a documentary with a film team here around that time. coming out yet, but I need to make sure I'm available. Yeah. Okay. So that was when we were talking about him doing. Okay. So
It's a
I guess it's a doc. I guess he did tell me he was making a documentary. I
about
didn't.
Skywolf Ranch.
Skywolf Ranch. Where's that at?
I'm not sure.
Well, I guess we better tune in. I guess I'll message him and find out what's going on so I can give you guys a 411 on Sunday about it. Oh, man. So Holly M says, I can't talk anybody into riding with me to the conference. And it's an 18 and a half hour drive for me, but I can tell you that I absolutely would love to be there. So I'm glad it will be streamed. Oh, that's too bad. So Holly, you're not going to make it? That's terrible. We were hoping that you'd be there. I didn't see Barton in the chat today. Is Barton doing something? Does he have like some kind of Brotherhood of the Wolf thing going on where he's got people going? Andrew Valdez, thank you for that donation. We greatly appreciate it.
Skywolf Ranch borders Skinwalker Ranch.
Well, that whole area is messed up. I mean, it's like the path of the Skinwalker is not just, Skinwalker Ranch. It's,
To us, we have borders. To them, it's just
there's
wood.
no borders
It's just
for them.
land.
It's just there. It's weird that Yeah, and so we're going to be unveiling another project too at the conference. So there's going to be a lot going on. A lot of stuff's going to happen. Well, Holly, it says you would pray for a miracle. Have you looked into flying, Holly? Are you afraid to fly? I know I don't like to fly, but I mean, push comes to shove, you'd probably be just as economical to fly. John Sablon, awesome. Last year was a great time. She's petrified of flying. Well, Barton got on a plane. I couldn't believe it. He got on a plane and flew out here to Texas, and then he flew back. Stayed out here for 10 days, man.
That was a good time.
We had a great time. I put him up in a hotel, and we had a great time. I mean, it was awesome. Yeah, see, Madeline doesn't like to fly, but she's...
Didn't want to drive alone.
Yeah, I didn't want to drive alone. So nobody is willing to go with you, Holly? That's horrible. We don't want you to not be able to make it because people don't want to go. That's not good. Anyways, folks, thank you for tuning in. And anybody that we can help try to get to the conference, or if there's anything we can do, especially if you're a Patreon member, because if you're a Patreon member, we have a special surprise for you if you show up at the conference. So just remember that. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We hope that as many people as possible can make it. Let's see what we got here. Oh, gosh. I just put an angry... Adam Davies messaged me, and I'm putting an angry thing on there. Sorry, man. Me too. See what we got here. Cool. All right, so that's good news. So I got good news. I talked to Ron Moorhead today. Adam Davies are going to be flying in. And all right, folks, we appreciate everything. Y'all be safe. Thank you. Good night. Oh, one last thing, folks. Be sure and go check out the books. They're on Amazon. Unless you're going to the conference, you can wait and whatever. But yeah, the books they're available on Amazon. The Bigfoot Phenomena and Werewolves and the Dogman Phenomena. Thank you. See you Sunday.